Lord have mercy. Q, you're going to have to be on control of everything because I still have a broken phone. So I'm a little limited. What's up, y'all? Hello, hello, hello. I don't know if we are live in the places that we're supposed to be live at other than YouTube. I think I accidentally deleted this stream. So if you are watching us, give us a second to check our pages and just make sure that this is going where it's supposed to go. I know YouTube's got us up live. I don't know if we are on the Facebook page or even on my personal page. So give us a second. Edward, good to see you. Been a minute.
We're on Facebook too.
We are on Facebook?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. I am not, let's see. So there we go. So Edward wanted to use us as his case study tonight. So hopefully we'll give you some good conversation for the book. And then, of course, we'll all support the book when that bad boy comes out. So welcome to Free Thinkers. Sorry, we got a little bit of a crazy intro here. Welcome to Free Thinkers. It's Tuesday. Thank you for joining us. If you are interested in getting into tonight's conversation, go on to the Facebook Free Thinkers group page. At the very top, it's pinned. My phone is still broken, so it's not all fancy. I didn't create an invite, but at the very top of our page, the picture for the conversation tonight, Undisputed Facts, and the StreamYard link is posted, pinned to the top. So again, the StreamYard link changes every single week. It is not the same every Tuesday. So if you want to get involved with our panel and come onto the show live any Tuesday, every Tuesday, you've got to follow the Facebook, the Free Thinkers Facebook page. The YouTube channel, please also subscribe over there because that is where we have all of our videos. But all of the conversation that we have, all of the content, all of the networking, all of the everything that we do is over on our Facebook page. So over there, you can get the StreamYard link. It will bring you directly into our screen here, and you'll be on the show live. If you're not comfortable getting onto the show live, then you are welcome to watch, of course, and engage with us in the chat. Whether you're on the Facebook page, my page, or the YouTube channel, you can get involved in the chat and it will show up here on our screen. We will generally pop it up on the live panel, and we try to engage with you in conversation in the chat as well. So tonight, we've got an interesting conversation. As usual, we ask you guys to give us topic ideas. So thank you for giving us this topic idea tonight, Edward. Q says we've talked about something similar way, way, way back in the day before Free Thinkers was born, almost 6 years ago. But it is, what did you say? Indisputable facts.
So the idea is, obviously this is a very unusual time in America. We're in the age of misinformation and disinformation. And as a country, everyone knows there's a lot of division, right? And a big chunk of that division is the ability to have a conversation with other people of different viewpoints. The biggest problem that seems to get in the way is being able to establish that some things just are facts, right? There's a difference between a fact and an opinion, and we seem to have lost track of that. And the idea that just because you heard it somewhere doesn't mean it's a fact, right? So the idea was to come together and pick an indisputable fact and decide amongst different ways of thinking. Why do we all agree on this one and we can't use that same logic, like whatever applied to that, why aren't we applying it to other things? And if we've got an example, then maybe it'll be easier to be like, okay, do you agree that this is a fact? And they say yes, and you're like, okay. If you believe that, why do you believe it? Okay, that same logic would apply to this. And you just kind of guide people into recognizing when they're not using their normal thinking patterns. That makes sense?
It does.
Yeah. I can tell you right now, Edward, part of the problem is that there's such a small percentage of indisputable facts.
Agreed.
Even things that we generally consider to be a fact, it still doesn't make it indisputable.
The reason I want
let's go to a simple one, like the Earth is round.
Why y'all want to go there first?
It's just an example. We can gloss by it, but even something that is largely accepted as a fact, the one of Well, the fact is 99.9999999% of us have not been in a position or a perspective to observe the world from a viewpoint, and I'm saying minus astronaut type people. So even things that we accept as fact, it still can't be proven as fact, because even in our own personal experiences, we go off of what we believe. That's still what we believe versus what we know to be true.
So that's why I want to actually take a step back, right? I like the idea that we've got people in here that can argue for flat Earth versus round Earth, that kind of thing. But what is a fact that everyone in this group would agree is indisputable? And I don't mean indisputable as far as it will never change, because science learns new stuff all the time. But as of right now, it's a truth that you've never doubted. And we'll figure out, why do you believe it so vehemently, and why do you not doubt this one particular item? It can be super simple, it can be complicated, whatever, but something that all of us can agree on.
Babies get preferential treatment.
Okay, not an opinion, a provable fact. So let me ask Nikki, what is something that you have never doubted? If somebody told you this is a thing, and it's not an opinion, we're talking about a provable fact, because the idea is evidence and being able to prove something, right? So what is something that you consider something you've never doubted?
You know, when you posted this and I was reading the follow-up conversations, you know, the comments. So if you guys are like, what are they talking about? On the Facebook Freethinkers page, Edward had posted this topic essentially. So there is some additional conversation under there as well, if you're, you know, just curious about what we're referring to. So when you posted this, I literally sat at the table with my notebook and a pen, and I was like, I wrote down the words indisputable facts. And I was like, what are some indisputable facts? And the only thing that I could really come up with, honestly, is that they lie.
Okay.
Whoever they may be, whoever they fix, they lie.
That's not a fact.
That is a fact, because all the other things that I thought about listing were opinion based. They may be factual to me, but they probably wouldn't be factual to you.
Let me take a stab at it, Edward.
I need something provable.
Okay.
It is proven that they lie.
Well,
they lied about
here. Let's go here. Let's go here. We all die.
Okay.
Women give birth.
That
was my other one. That was my other one, Stokely. Yeah. You must be a
biological woman.
Biologically born woman in order to produce a child.
Right. So that's a good example.
Okay.
Everything that lives dies at some point, right? Nobody doubts that particular one. And we're not saying what happens afterwards. We're just saying every living organism at some point will pass away. Right?
I agree.
So when you have a fact like that, why is that one so indisputable? As far as, in the most simple terms, I mean, we can prove it because everybody's seen it. We can prove it because, you know, obviously there's graveyards, doctors agree on it, that kind of stuff. Nobody ever doubts that one. Even if you've never seen someone die yourself, why do you believe that it's true? And this question really is kind of more for Nikki, because I'm the people who think the way I do, I already understand that kind of logic, scientific method, and that sort of thing. But for Nikki, if you had never seen anyone die personally, like your own eyes, you saw them living and you actually saw them pass away, why do you have no doubt that it's true?
Because everything that's living eventually dies.
Well, no. That's just repeating the fact that you know this thing. The question is, how do you know it? As far as, you say that very confidently, like you believe in it. Like, I know I can say fire is hot because I've touched it, I've burned myself, I believe it. You say everything's died. Why do you believe that without repeating the fact that it's a fact? Like, what's
because you watch things die. You see things die.
Okay. So
whether it's an animal, whether it's a death, whether it's natural, whether it's, you know, a murder. I mean, you watch things die. You see things die.
Okay, so personal observation is your go-to.
No, but how I answered that question is how I answer that question.
So part of it, let me say this, I think there's a combination of things that sum up to an irrefutable fact. Part of it is we see things with a lesser lifespan come. We see the birthing process, the maturity to death. We see that also in our own lives. Very, very few of us can say, and almost none of us can say, that we knew or know our great grandparents.
Right.
So there's a pattern of even those that come before us in our own line, they no longer exist. Why? Because it was a process and they pass. And we see it in our grandparents. Some of us have seen it in our parents. Almost everyone we didn't. And from that, our parents witnessed it with their parents and grandparents and so forth like that. So that's another example that we have to say nobody lives forever. And my last point with that, I will also say, what does it say? Black. I can't.
Organize, strategize, and mobilize.
Oh, okay.
Black lives do matter.
Now,
I don't care what they say.
The other
That's
part
a fact.
the other part that I will say too, even without the evidence, it's partial evidence. How my body reacted when I was 10 versus 20 versus 30 versus 40 versus however old you are, you actually feel your body decaying in that process. So that also gives you another,
it's more personal experience,
reassurance that, hey, your body is breaking down. This thing is not gonna sustain itself forever. So the combination of all those things, it produces an irrefutable fact. I don't know how,
can someone think of an example of a fact that is generally commonly accepted that an average person wouldn't have seen the evidence themselves, other than the earth is round? Yeah. I want to find another example.
You need air to breathe.
Okay. So here's an interesting one. Like, you don't see air, right?
Right.
You've been told you need air to breathe. Obviously, from personal experience, if you hold your breath, you feel the difference. Can you think of an example? Because the idea here is to find a way, an example that we can use for folks that are ignoring evidence in everyday life, like conspiracy theories, right? A good common one that I keep getting is the election was stolen, right? Now, the question that I ask those people, because I use an evidence-based kind of thinking, I'm like, okay, if that were true, do you agree that Trump and his crew went to court 61 times to say that it was fraudulent? They went to court 61 times. All of those times, the courts threw them out because they couldn't produce any evidence. So in that situation, right, the person on the other side who's still saying that the election was stolen, I'm looking for some sort of way to get them to recognize, okay, you do recognize evidence in this situation over here. Why aren't you recognizing the fact that if they had evidence, why did 61 times in front of a judge, including more than half of them being judges that Trump appointed? So you can't say it's conspiracy. He appointed more than half of them, right? They never actually brought any evidence with them. You hear it all the time. Oh, I've got the receipts to prove it, and they never bring them.
That was just blatant.
Well, there can be facts without absolutes also.
Right, but facts, this is something that there would be evidence. Right?
Yeah, there would be facts to this.
I'm trying to find that common ground.
And I think, let me see if I understand what you're saying. You're saying if we can find something that is universally recognized as a fact, and we can pinpoint kind of the formula or the characteristics of how we can come to the conclusion that this is a fact, can we take those same set of rules and standards and apply it to other things in order to establish if something else is worthy of being called a fact?
Everybody thinks easier when you give them an example, right? If you're like, oh, if it's like this, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm familiar with that. Okay, and now you just kind of bring them along on a ride that they're already familiar with, right? It's
I got holes. I'm tearing that, but Stokely, you was about to say something.
No, I was just thinking like, Edward made a point to say that giving us that example made me start to think a little differently. But I mean, that one's so blatantly obvious or simple.
Well, it's only obvious to those who think that it's obvious.
Well,
the other people are not seeing that.
And it's obvious to those who believe in the validity of that system. If you question the validity of that system, if you question the validity of these judges, if you question the validity of our history, then it bears some validity in questioning.
That's what I was going to say also. I mean,
straight up.
That's where I was going when I was saying that fact, there still can be fact without absolutes. So what I'm saying is there's also a fact. You can also have a fact that men have alternate and evil agendas. So with that being said, then that could throw everything else out the window when you approach something like that. Go ahead.
Nikki, this is a common argument that I've heard a gazillion times, and that's why I'm looking for a solid example. When you say you doubt that system, but it's the same system you don't doubt so many other times.
But I do. Yes, I do. When I started this conversation with they lie, that's the baseline of everything. Question everything.
Okay, Nikki, hold on.
That's true.
Let me finish my statement. So the idea is, if I'm talking to someone who just assumes everything is wrong regardless of evidence, because the simple fact that you said they lie is an indisputable fact. That is filled with conspiracy theory thinking, and the simple fact you're not defining who they are and lying about what. It's a giant broad-based term.
Yeah.
Which allows, hold on. The hardest part about these arguments is people on one side are taking a broad generic thing that has a little bit of truth to it, definitely in certain circumstances. Absolutely. So you don't argue with that. But because they're staying vague, they're not actually bringing up any real evidence to support the thing you're actually talking about. So if I talk about they went to court 61 times and brought no evidence every single time, and half the judges were appointed by the man who's going in front of them, you say, I don't trust that system, but he appointed half of the judges there, and he could just bring the evidence and show
but Edward, whatever you're saying after her initial statement carries no weight, because her initial statement is they lie.
The foundation is.
So even the other facts that you said that you present to that, or someone who feels like they lie, then okay,
that's the point.
Your facts don't mean anything.
Right,
so
and that's the whole point of this conversation. I want to find an example that's universal enough when you are using your foundation thinking is everything's a lie. That would also mean everything that you believe is also a lie. If everyone lies, everything that you hold as true was lied to also, because you're choosing to believe one thing over another. By saying the court is lying and they're not seeing their evidence, you're automatically defaulting to there is evidence. So you do believe in one side of the story, which doesn't make any actual logical sense if you say they lie.
No, you don't have to believe in any side of you don't have to have a definitive belief in any side of the story, but you can just believe that the story that they're presenting to me is not the whole truth.
Please pause. Have you ever seen...
Well, he was speaking. You have to take a pause when somebody's speaking. I get that this is what you're most interested in, but you got to let people talk too.
Well,
no, he good. I know he's no. You fine, because I know you're trying to build somewhere. But what I'm saying is, you're building.
Well, I'm also trying to say
if there's a hole in your case that you're building, then I got to point out the hole, because it's you know what I'm saying. Because once you get to your conclusion, then all I'm gonna do is just keep jabbing at the holes. It's like before we go further up the foundation, then I got to show you where the. Go ahead. No, I'm with you. I know you got to build it up. Go ahead.
The reason I tried to pause you is because we have a tendency here at Free Thinkers to get way off track and wander all over to topics that were not where we started. And I'm looking for something so specific, and I know how long it'll take to get there because it's such a hard thing to pin down, that I'm trying to wrangle it in and keep it super focused. So when you say, oh, well, that's not true, the question is, have you ever in your life heard one person say that the election fraud thing, when they're all like, oh, well, I don't trust that system, have you heard anybody actually neutral on the side that is looking for the evidence ever say that? It usually comes from that side where they're being really vague, where they say fake news. I don't want to believe it. I don't trust that system. But they're trusting in something. They're trusting in Trump is saying it was stolen, because people who are actually neutral, they don't say the system lies. They say, show me the evidence. The people who are saying,
no, people who are neutral can call it out both ways.
Yeah, that's true. That is
so,
true.
Nikki, here's my question to you then.
I'm neutral too, Edward, and I'm like, I ain't saying it is or ain't, but I'm not saying I trust it. But go ahead. I see what you're saying.
If you were asked, so Q, if you were asked that question, you're like, okay, is there evidence of this fraud? There were 61 court cases. You wouldn't ask, do I believe in the system? You would probably ask, well, where's the evidence? Let me see it. Instead of just trusting that there was or there wasn't. If somebody says they have evidence, they could easily have gone on national television and just gave it out.
No, not easily. That's not how that works. That's not how you suppress information.
You trust the media.
Giving it out.
You ain't listen to Kanye tell you about the media.
And as we've learned, 96% of the media is owned by one group of individuals. So no, it's not that easy.
But we're talking about people who own their own social network sites and things like that. You can't deny, if Trump wanted to say something, it would have gotten out immediately, and it would take longer to wrangle it back in. It would have been seen by millions of people before anyone would be able to shut it down. He was president at the time when he was saying no one else had taken over yet. He owned the White House. He could just go up in front of the cameras. The White House correspondence people are live television, and he could have just shown the evidence at any time right there on national television. Instead, he says they've got evidence, but never actually produces it. So I'm not trying to get into that particular topic, but I'm trying to say somebody who's neutral wouldn't say, I don't trust the system. They'd be like, well, let me see the evidence myself.
No, not necessarily.
Some sort of example that I can use with someone who doesn't ask that question. They never ask to see the evidence. What's a universal truth where they would ask to see the evidence? And I want to be like, in this example, you want to see the evidence. Why don't you want to see it here?
Because you're involving emotion and feeling.
I'm trying to involve facts. Something
I know, but what I'm saying, okay, so as you're trying to involve facts, then you cannot discount emotion and feeling. So when you're saying, why wouldn't a person ask on this side versus they ask on that side? Yeah, I always, if something is wrong to my detriment, then I always want to know what's wrong, why is it wrong, and what do we need to do to fix it? Now, if for some reason money just start falling out the sky directly over my house, I might be curious, but my questions are going to be very limited. I'm like, well, I don't know. Let me go and keep scooping this up and say, thank you, Lord. And it's, I'm not going to ask those questions versus if there's being money taken from my house, I got a lot of questions.
Yeah. That's why I was saying, neutral is going to be different from you're gaining from not paying attention to that evidence, which the people
I'm just saying it's not necessarily
and don't show it. Have everything to gain by never showing it.
Facts are just not as important as
we
think they are.
Hey,
okay, go ahead.
I'm trying to get back to there are certain things, because we can agree to have a discussion where opinion is, chocolate's better than vanilla, right? If you want to have that discussion, we have to agree on the fact that they are both ice cream. Right? If one person is going into that conversation going, chocolate doesn't exist, and the other person is going, well, no, chocolate exists and it's better. The better part is my opinion. The fact that it exists is the fact. I'm trying to get people to recognize.
I see that. I follow that. Keep going.
Right. So the book is trying to find a way to get people to recognize through good, clear, simple examples that there is a difference between fact and opinion. If we could agree on the facts, then yes, we can have debates about what we think those facts mean. But right now, we're in a situation where most of the conversations, if someone doesn't have any facts of their own to back up their side, they hear yours, they just yell fake news, right? They don't listen to anything past that. And they're just hiding behind this very vague, I don't believe in facts sort of thing. So I'm trying to find examples that force someone to go, okay, facts do matter. And here's a fact that without that fact, I wouldn't be able to believe what I believe in, right? So yes, you can have opinions, but those opinions need to have facts at the base of it. The chocolate and vanilla both exist. They're both ice cream. Those are the facts. Which one you like more is an opinion, right? So I'm trying to find an example that everyone agrees This is a provable thing. It has facts. I can prove it, and I can use it as an easy example.
All right,
Okay.
I'm curious to hear from the three voices we haven't heard so far. Jules, Stokely, Smack. Jules, Stokely, and Smack. Any irrefutable facts, suggestions, or thoughts about what Edward is saying?
From what I just chimed in on it, but you also have to add in who has the bigger microphone.
Right.
Who's got the bigger broadcast system? So facts are, we could be like, oh, we're searching for the facts, but what you're not going to outdo is that broadcast system is what you're not going to do. Even with everything you know is true, you could say, hey man, me standing next to this is going to cause a fire. And if they have a bigger mic and tell you, no, it's not, your dumb ass going to go, I don't think it's going to do that. All they got to do is keep saying the shit over and over again. You're going to not believe
For this conversation, I know those things are definitely, because we don't live in a vacuum. Yes, that's absolutely a factor. But let's assume we're looking for something where we're having a one-on-one conversation with a family member who believes some crazy stuff. You're just talking to them. So we're not talking about putting on television,
like what?
Whatever. Right. If I want to talk to my uncle who's gone off the deep end and he's about to drink that poison Kool-Aid, what kind of conversation can I have with them to be able to, let me use an example that my uncle will understand, to bring him in and recognize some facts are indisputable. You can agree on the facts and then have your opinions on top of it, but we still have to recognize the
you
facts.
do what kids do. Kids will say, hey, that's piss. No, it's not. Okay, stick your finger in it and taste it. Yeah, that's piss. That's piss right there.
Okay, let me ask a question that is indirect.
I like how y'all.
No. Go ahead. I'm trying to give something because Jules and Stokely
I
really
can't
haven't
shake
spoken.
shit up. Let's go. Come on.
I like that example.
Hold on. Let me get to. I think that's a good example. But and then Edward, after that, then you can get back to what you're doing. I just want to make sure everybody get involved in this part, and this may lend a little baseline to it as well. Jules, let me go to you first. How important are facts to you in the scope of facts versus feelings? Like, what would you say you run off if you could give a percentage to, what's how you operate? What's the majority that you operate on? Do you go with your gut feeling, or do you use facts to kind of guide your path?
In what arena? Because that's going to make all the difference in the world. In my personal life, in relationships, I'm going off my gut instinct.
Okay, let's go relationships
know me
first.
Long enough to know that. If I'm talking about politics, I'm reviewing the facts. I don't care. I'm not looking to see how somebody makes me feel. My gut instinct has very little to do with it. There will be a part where I go, you know what? I had the opportunity to meet that person at one time, and everything about them just went, ugh. And I'm like, then it would play. Other than that, I'm looking at facts. If it has to do with my work life, I'm looking at facts. So it depends on the arena.
Ooh. Okay, now and that's the next one I was going to ask you, Jules, because even in your work life, business life, are you strongly off of facts, or do sometimes you go at your gut, like, this don't feel right?
No, strongly on facts in my work life.
Straight off of facts.
I got too many years experience in the career field to be wishy-washy about anything to go off of gut. And what I'm going to do is, if there is a gut feeling, I'm going to go find the facts. I'm going to go figure out why there was that instinct, that feeling that happened. Right. I'm going to go search and find all those facts. Whereas in my personal life, I've learned that in personal relationships, when my instinct says, hey, something ain't right with this mofo, guess what? Something ain't right with this mofo.
So relationships, you're going to lean more toward the feelings. Outside of that, you said you're going to lean more toward the facts with anything else.
And if you're getting ready to move on, I do have, when you started this, you were talking about the fact that we all agree that everyone dies. Mm-hmm. I think that you need to clarify and quantify that fact that we all agree on, because the only part I will agree on is that the physical body ceases to exist.
Right. Sure.
I do not think that we all die, disappear. So once you cross that bridge into whatever it is after the physical body no longer exists, this is where opinions come into play because none of us
Sure,
have been there and come
absolutely.
back.
Right.
And
We
that's a
don't know
good
until we get there.
Yeah, that's a good clarification, and I'm pretty certain you
Yeah, we
you didn't think
clarified
that's
that.
what you didn't think I was
What happened
referring to that part
afterwards?
of it, but yeah, that's a good clarification also.
I've actually been here a couple times, but this is probably the last time
Last time you what?
So I come back because my instincts tell me like, hey, something ain't right. And if I've never seen it before, never done it, I'm always questioning, why do I know that? How did I have this deja vu moment if I've never even been here yet? So I must have already done this before. So that's how I know that I've done this before.
Okay, so even the same thing for you. You say in general, your day-to-day life, do you operate more off of facts or off of feeling?
It's a mixture of both, actually. And I agree with Jules, like if I walk up, I don't know, somebody's, let's say, like, because we've all done it, right? And sometimes we pick our feelings over the facts. We know this person's lying to us. This girl's lying to me, but I still want to date her, so I'm going with my feelings, right? So we've all done shit like that. And then you start to learn in life, like, hey, I know this person's full of shit. I feel it. And that's all the fact I need. Because at the same time, we're researchers too. So who do I go to and say, hey, is this a fact? Well, gee, do you know? You don't know? You're the one having the experience. You should know if it is or not. You know, like you know, I mean, you can use it in so many situations. But just like she said, when people are saying we can all agree that you die, I agree with her. Like, but do we? What does that actually mean? That's what they've told us in school. But some people have experiences with ghosts or, you know, things like that. I tend to believe, like, let's say I'm gonna use Tupac as an example. I believe he's still alive and well because there's not a day that goes by you're not affected by him in some form or fashion. So he's very much alive, and his reach is still alive today.
Right. What we're trying to do is we're trying to find the kinds of examples where when you're having that conversation with a family member about specifically political stuff, right? Because the book is trying to bridge the gap. Everybody has somebody who shows up in the family reunion at Thanksgiving that they're going off the rails, and you're trying to have that conversation with them to go, okay, I know you believe this, but why do you believe? Where's the evidence to support this crazy theory that you've got? Because
why has it got to be crazy?
Well, here's the difference. So Nick,
but when you say things like that, that automatically is going to put people on the defense, and they're not going to engage in a conversation of trying to allow you to understand where they come from because you've already laid the foundation that it's crazy to them.
Right. And my point is, and again, I'm going to say this again, I'm trying to find a user-friendly example instead of saying, well, that's crazy.
Well, that's not a good one.
Jumping out of the airplane with a parachute. I thought that was the craziest thing white people ever did. I thought that was just crazy. I mean,
they did that without a parachute?
Yeah, I mean, who invented the plane? So eventually, white people jumped out the damn plane when they was flying the motherfucker. But that was crazy, right? But eventually, somebody figured out, you just need a parachute. Do it like this, and boom, you can land on the ground. Man, that's crazy. I'm not finna get my ass up in no plane and jump out of it with a parachute. My baby mama here. Damn, y'all didn't tell me, man.
I knew it.
I'm gonna be cool though. Hey.
I told you she was coming.
That last picture,
the little ones are cool, Denise.
It was the last picture that got you. Hold on, just a second. I got to get to Stokely first because I haven't heard from him yet. Hold on, just a second, Stokely. When it comes to your day-to-day life, how you operate? Do you operate? I mean, if there is a percentage balance, how would you say? What's the dynamic of how you operate between facts versus feelings?
Yeah, well, you know my favorite word. Nikki,
balance.
Balance. You gotta have balance. Now, I will say I do lean towards facts and data and all that. It's just what I do. But feelings come into play, and Edward brought up a good point when he was talking about, you know, the relative that comes to Thanksgiving dinner and wants to have that conversation. What would really help this conversation tonight is if we had one of those or two of those people that believe that other side. And we can ask them directly. And I want a direct answer from them. Because if not, if they're doing the same shit that we see on TV and hear them say on those Jordan Klepper clips, it's bullshit. And as crazy as it may sound when Edward says, yeah, you're just absolutely crazy, it's crazy. There's not a court in the land that has listened to this nonsense. They've said that they were going to get the machines, the information. They've got all these crazy lawyers. It's bullshit. So with that being said, I lean towards the data. I lean towards the facts.
So I think I've got a question that might help.
Well, Edward, I was going to say also, right before you ask the question, I was going to say you can easily use me as a guinea pig because, no, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I am one of the, I know there's several spiritual people on here, but I am the one who would be considered more religious. And you can call that crazy to an extent because it's not based off of facts.
We're going off track again.
And it's like, exactly. So it's like, and if you ask me, like, I don't have facts for it. I'm going off of what I believe. I'm going off of feeling, emotion, what I believe, so forth. So it's the same thing. It's not fact based. But go ahead.
So when I'm trying to reel things in, what I mean by that is like that conversation is not the conversation that I'm trying to figure out how to broach with people. So like, I think for this, Nikki is a great example. You, and I'm going to use this. I know you hate it, and I promise to be respectful, but you believe the earth is flat. Now, when you go to Thanksgiving dinner with other people who disagree with you, when you think they're crazy for thinking it's round, when you try and bring up your argument, well, I mean, if you believe it, do you believe the earth is flat is a fact in your mind? Do you believe it's a fact, or are you simply saying it because you don't believe in any other facts that say it's round?
I believed it was round, just like we all believed it was round. I was taught the same stuff that everybody on this panel was taught. For the longest time, I wanted to have a whole solar system tattooed on my whole sleeve was going to be solar system because I believed so heavily in the moon and the stars and the round Earth and the gravity and all of these things. So I believed strongly, just like everybody else did.
For the rest of your life, trying to get that thing.
Man, I'm so goddamn glad I didn't. I'm so glad I didn't get that tattoo. I'd have been wearing long sleeves and jokes.
What fact changed your mind?
Well, I mean, there's a long list of them that start to make you question things. But again, I come from a space where I question things. So it isn't just one bit or one piece.
Hold on. So when you say that, right, you're questioning things. Why are you not questioning the ones that tell you it's flat and you are questioning the ones that say it's round when everyone else around you and the 99.9% of all the scientists who actually got to go to space and look at it from orbit?
That's not a fact either.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, Nikki. Maybe this is a good example. You've personally never gone to medical school, correct?
Absolutely not.
Would you trust the doctor? If you broke your leg, you go to the hospital, are you going to trust the science that they use to fix your leg? Or do you personally need to go through medical school before you trust them to do it?
That's a horrible excuse. That's a horrible example.
Why?
Because I may be okay with a broken leg or something doesn't mean I'm okay with, and we can go to your favorite one, the vaccine. There's absolutely nothing about that I would support. I don't care how many medical degrees you have, but a broken leg is pretty simple. You show me on an x-ray that my leg is broken, you put some pins in there if we need to, or you cast me. Boom, it's pretty simple. That's pretty easy.
What's the difference between that and taking a vaccine, putting it in a petri dish, put the disease that the vaccine fights, and visually being able to see the vaccine kill those germs? You haven't personally seen it. It's not as easy, but scientists have got millions of people they gave it to. It had that exact effect, and under a microscope, it's just as visible as seeing a broken leg. You just don't personally have access to that microscope.
Nobody said that the vaccine did not necessarily kill the specific virus.
Which it didn't.
All of the everything else that it does to the body once it's in the body that a lot of us have an issue with.
But Nikki,
and the fact that somebody's a scientist is irrelevant to me because pharmaceutical industry pays these people. They're like sponsors. They should wear lab coats with patches for who's paid them to say what they say.
Race car suits with patches. Let me argue this though. Let me argue this though, Nikki. So when you do break your leg, why do you go to a hospital or to a doctor versus going to your neighbor down the street? If it
I don't, unless it's literally medically necessary. If it is a condition,
hold on, time out. Even when it is medically necessary, why do you go to a doctor versus someone else?
Because I can't wrap a cast on my leg. I can't perform surgery on my leg. I mean, I don't think that all people are bad.
I know, but I'm going back to his point of something being, when you talk about proof, we can't prove this, we can't prove that. But then Edward's also saying you can't prove that this person is qualified to reset your leg when it's broken, but you still trust them enough to go to it. What gives you the trust in one area and give you the freedom not to trust on the opposite side? I think that's where he was trying to go. I'm trying to keep us on point.
I'll give you a perfect example. About 5 years ago, my son was hit by a car on his bike. We didn't have insurance. We go to the emergency room in an ambulance because that's where they take you. I've got I don't even know what grade he was in at this point. He was in elementary school, a little kid hit on his bike by a car. We go to the hospital. At first, he had broken both his ankles. He was going to require a special wheelchair, was going to be in this wheelchair for 8 to 12 weeks. Surgery wasn't going to be necessary because they weren't, those types of fractures. But he definitely broke both of his ankles. When they found out that we didn't have insurance, all of a sudden they were we're going to put some boots on him and we'll get you some crutches and keep him off of his feet for 8 to 12 weeks. We have the right to question people. Just because you have a license or a degree, you were taught the same thing as the next person. There is error. Humans make errors.
Hold on. Okay, not about how the money goes and what they're telling you the treatment should be.
How did they go from broken to not broken? It's the same doctor that said they were broken and then now they're not broken.
Please stop.
Answer the question.
The X-ray. Let me ask you a different question. The X-ray.
Well, hold on. Let me stay there and then you can ask another question. Nikki, so when you said they jumped in the ambulance, why did you go to an ambulance?
Because I didn't know if my son had internal injury from being hit by a car. I can't see that from the outside. I don't have medical equipment in my house.
Again, I'm driving the point home is you still have faith that these people are professionals and they are supposed to know what they are doing when it comes to this area. But then another set of doctors, then you're like, oh, F them doctors, they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the vaccine.
Hang on. So we're going off track. Hold on. Q,
I thought that was on track, but I'll let you take it, Edward. I'm trying to stay on track.
Let me focus this.
Go ahead.
If the doctor, the X-ray that showed you his ankles were broken, that is a fact that machine worked and took a picture of his broken bone. The science they used to make the X-ray machine, regardless of what they said to charge you afterwards, you saw the X-ray shows his leg is broken. The science they used to build that machine, the fact is that science works. That's a fact.
The machine works.
Yeah, there's no opinion on whether or not the X-ray machine works. And the people who invented the X-ray machine use science and evidence and scientific method to make an X-ray machine that you trust works. You never questioned the X-ray, did you?
I mean, I saw the picture that they gave me.
Right, but it never occurred to you to go, oh, the X-ray is lying. You believe the fact that science works. This X-ray is incapable of lying to me. It's going to tell me the truth, regardless of what they say about it. This science works because it's evidence-based. I can see the crack. You trust that machine, right?
I trusted the picture that they showed me, yeah.
Well, to trust that picture requires that you have to trust that all the science.
Yeah, I believe the machine. I believe the machine took the picture of his bones and showed the result of what the picture was taken of. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the kind of example I'm looking for. That's evidence. That's fact. What they want to do next is
makes you question.
Right. So when we're talking about political divide, where are the things that we can say this is a fact and not opinion?
I don't think you can say there's facts with politics.
There are. When you're saying,
ooh, you gotta tell me, Edward, because it's hard. Because I'm thinking about that. What political facts? What are political facts?
So
they lie.
They all lie.
And they're bought. Whoever has the biggest bank wins.
I go back to Nikki on this one. They all lie. That's what
I'm trying to get at. What would be something where, if you're talking about like the election was stolen, there are facts that you can go to because people physically voted on paper that you can look at and you can count. Right? That is something that can be done. Now, you personally never invented that X-ray machine. You personally never had anything to do with it, but you trust that it was built correctly and you trust that it worked.
But Edward, there's been evidence in the past in history of voter tampering, with political people lying, with elections being rigged. We have historically, we have presidents that never should have been in office because
before you say the election is
fraud.
stolen, our voices were stolen and they created the election so that you had to vote for your voice to be heard, right? And they still control that. Then they control it again by if y'all Negroes do get together and try to get us out of here. We got this thing called the Electoral College. And now we get to say, oh no. So come on, y'all. Like,
so to answer your question, Edward, I don't think there's a political. I don't think there's a such thing as a political fact.
What I'm looking for is there are facts. There are facts. This person was in this
back to what I said. It's bullshit. If you know somebody in your family at Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter dinner that comes to you with that political bullshit about the election was stolen, it is absolutely bullshit. And you should never call it bullshit, regardless of their feelings. If they, I know it's going to shut them down.
But but this is the thing. That's what I'm saying. When it affects you, it's just like when Bush and Gore, the Democrats, was talking about how the Republicans stole the election. See, it depends on whose side it falls on.
And I had no problem with it. My problem was, again, show me the evidence of how that was stolen. When you go to court 61 times and lose 60 out of the 61 times, he only had one judge that even gave him an ounce of sustainability to say, okay, well, that could happen. No.
So, but overwhelming truth or overwhelming probability still does not equal fact.
Okay,
you're right. But
we're veering off topic again.
At the end of the day,
I think I'm on topic all the time.
Hang tight, Edward.
You got to, all right, Edward, you got to show us where you're going, because I feel like I'm on topic. I'm riding this topic like crazy.
My thing is, like I said, continue to call bullshit. I don't care if it hurts your feelings. And I'm a person that wants to sit there and listen and have the conversation. But shit like this.
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
This nigga here.
Do you agree that if we write off all these people, we just say you're full of crap, you're crazy? There's like 70 plus million of those crazy people. Obviously, if we write them off, the only voice they're going to hear are the people agreeing with them, right? Someone who cares about this person has to be willing to sit down and have a conversation where they try and guide them away from the cliff of bullshit and towards something where they at least recognize enough facts that they can have a legitimate debate. So say you did. Right. So I'm not trying to write
bullshit.
Oh, you a little rope. You chopping up, Stokely. You chopping up, Stokely.
We can't. You chopping up.
It doesn't sound like you're interested in understanding anyone's perspective. Rather, you want them to pretty much believe what you think is factual.
No. What I'm trying to do is find.
No, yes, you can bring them away from the cliff of bullshit. That's come closer to me.
Well,
that's not. I'm trying to. That's not the picture of the book that you have on the front of your book. You have blues and reds shooting bullets at each other. There's no middle ground there. You're not trying to find a middle ground. You're trying to get them to believe what you believe because those are the facts that you believe in.
No, what I'm trying to do is find a way to start a conversation that doesn't end up here, right? Obviously,
by telling, I would not encourage people that I would not have a conversation with somebody with the premise of trying to change their mind. That's never going to work.
Well, here's the question though.
So you shouldn't have started off with flat earth or vaccines. You should have just. You would have been better off coming to me for religion.
I've been waiting to comment on that medicine. That's how I feel.
So hang on. Here's the difference. People are currently living in a situation where they've got a family member who's actually buying guns and planning to go hurt people and murder people because of these political beliefs. When I say get off that cliff of bullshit, that's the cliff I'm talking about. People in your family who may be about to go break the law and go ruin their life over something that is an opinion, one way or the other. How do you start that conversation?
Was an opinion, though.
Get them to listen. Yes, Denise.
Okay, so my thing is, if a person wants to go shoot up something, they're just going to switch who they're going to go shoot up. It's not if you're trying to change their mind on the actual thing. It's like the thing that needs to be addressed is the idea that they feel like they need to do that in the first place.
Right, but the only way to get them to change their mind as far as they feel this urge to go shoot fill in the blank, right? Whoever it is, I need to go murder such and such because I fear such and such. The way they got there is
the American
chose to
way.
believe one set of facts over another set of facts. They believe the facts that these people are dangerous to them specifically, and they need to go kill these people. Because most people, regardless of what you think, have some sort of normal, common thing where they want to feel safe. They want to protect their loved ones. Something about that thing that they fear is threatening that normal, everyday emotion that we all have. How do we key into that? And
the
get
formulation that you're using to come to these conclusions, you just got a lot of holes in them at the same time. Smack, I know you about to say something. Go. What you got, Smack? I know.
Look, I don't even remember because I was trying to comment on something 30 fucking minutes.
You were saying something about the vaccine.
The medicine.
You better jump in.
The medicine.
I wanted to comment on what he said about the medicine. Like, y'all got to remember. Okay, so they got doctors and people that know medicine, and you trust the pharmaceutical company. There was a time in this country where it was Big Mama that had the cure. And she didn't go to school for that.
Eastern versus Western.
Big Mama didn't go to school for none of that, and you trusted Big Mama because it was tried and proven. Hey, I know for a fact Big Mama gonna fix it. Like, she know how to do it. So that was that. Now the in-between part of everything else, like, it sounds like it's just going in circles because you're trying to convince somebody that they believe what they believe just like you believe what you believe.
What I'm trying to do is find a way to get them to recognize that maybe what they believe could possibly be wrong.
Okay, so you believe the earth is round, right?
Yes.
It could be possibly what you believe is wrong. I'm telling you, right? I'm here to save you.
Right. So in that situation...
Wait a minute. No, I'm here to save you right now.
Right. So
you actually believe the earth is round.
In that conversation, when you've got somebody who's going to go shoot a scientist who thinks it's wrong,
you're crazy. You ain't trying to hear me. You're crazy.
Down. Right. The idea is for the people on the extreme end.
Exactly.
How do you calm them down? And
he's still talking, what shows the more craziness part of it.
So you say on the far end. What if they believe that you are on the far end for believing that the earth is round? Well, what if you are in other people's eyes on the far end as well?
Wait, Q, Denise has her hand up. Please get her,
I gotta double back on this point. I don't think beliefs. What? I don't know what Smack said. I don't think
he giving you preferential treatment. He's jumping in front of the monitor. Like, hold on. Denise got something to say. Denise got something to say.
Right, Smack don't let nobody talk.
She got the hair teased and all that. Hey, be quiet, Q. Denise got something to say.
He said his baby mama on tonight.
So this is my thing. It goes back to the whole, what a person believes is not the issue. How they act is the problem.
But they act based off that belief.
Well,
they can just be an extremist, period, and they can just go shoot up the other side, or just it's how you act based on what you know.
Thank you, Miss Smack, for clearing that up, because that's exactly Mrs. Smack.
The idea is they're acting based off of some sort of belief. How do you, so skip facts maybe, how do you say something that makes somebody feel in a certain way where they pause before they go off and do something crazy? How do you get somebody who's that emotional about a topic where they're about to go do something violent?
You can't. You can't.
You're asking for a blanket response to individual issues, and you keep jumping from issue to issue to issue to issue, trying to have us teach how to get people to agree with you. What you're not seeming to do in this conversation is be open and willing to listen to the other side of the facts. It's one of the reasons why Q makes such a great moderator, because Q sits back and listens to both sides of that story, and then where the facts don't align with what he already believes or what has been presented as fact to him, he starts poking holes in your shit. If you're not willing to listen to the other side of the story, you're never going to gain their trust enough for them to start to consider what you believe are facts. You have lost their trust. And if they don't trust you, why would they listen to you? Especially if their life has been so fucked up that they are in such an extreme emotional state and mental insanity that they think going and killing people, taking human life, is a viable option. You're talking about a far extreme. This person did not wake up one morning and go, wow, this water just made me want to go kill everybody. Right? It doesn't work that way. It's been years and years of bullshit, of lies, of seeing lies uncovered. It's been the system breaking down. It's been them seeing men be put to death after a trial by a jury of their peers that found them guilty, and then they were murdered by the system, and then they were exonerated by science, because the whole
Over and over
factor,
again.
everybody wants to talk about the science factor. Well, the whole science factor is you test and you repeat and you test. And when you think it's a fact, you test it some more. But until you, Edward, are willing to sit and listen to the other side, you're not going to get through to anybody, baby. They don't give a shit what you have to say if they feel like you will not hear them. People want to feel like we are heard, that we are seen, and that we are understood. And if we can respectfully get to a point where we say, you know what? I hear you. I feel you. I don't fully understand your side of it, but I respect your opinion on, like, I respect that you have a different opinion than me, but I'm not there yet. Can you help get me there? Can you explain to me and if you can take that time, you have a much better chance of them going, well, you know, this person gave me that benefit and trusted me enough to share my thoughts. Maybe I should hold up and just see why they are so diametrically opposed in thought process to me.
Right. And
okay, hold on a second. Hold on just a second. I'm going to say this. Edward, 2 minutes, respond. Please, nobody interrupt him. Let him respond uninterrupted. Go ahead.
I'm timing this shit.
So my response is, for the record, I 100% agree with you. The only reason that I was like cutting people off isn't because I don't want to hear their side. It's because I'm not looking for a specific topic, this side versus that side. I've been a counselor for years. I know how to listen to people. What I'm looking for is an example to use that everyone could agree on, as like everybody could understand this example of how to calm someone down so that they recognize not emotions, but hey, the evidence you've been feeding off of, these fears that you've been having, maybe that evidence isn't as accurate as you think, right? What's some sort of way to get them to pause? Because we're assuming, I'm bad at the fact that I didn't go into this part. We're assuming that we already gained their trust. You're someone they care about, because that's the only person you're going to spend this much time talking to anyway. I'm not doing this with a stranger. You're assuming you have their trust. But what's an example that you can use to go, hey, you believe these facts and you use this method to believe those. You're not using that same thing that you already know and trust to believe these facts. You're just running with these facts and it's leading you in a bad way. Just some sort of way to get them to see they're not using their normal method of thinking on this topic versus that topic. Because when it's something calm, you know, normal everyday stuff, hey, my TV works. I trust the facts because, well, I don't have to understand it. I just trust that they did it. Other things where you get emotional, yeah, you let go of a lot of that. I'm trying to find a way to, you've already established trust, but calm them down and recognize you personally every day trust some facts over others. Why are you trusting these ones that are leading you towards something violent instead of these other ones? So that we can have that conversation and figure out, hey, maybe they are legit. Maybe they're right. And maybe I'm going to go run with them and go mess some shit up. I'm a firm believer in the system should be burnt down. But I'm talking about how do you slow them down to find out, are they actually thinking this through, or are they just hearing something over and over and over again and they didn't actually think about any of it?
Okay. So let me say this. And now let someone else jump in. I appreciate your attempt of what you're trying to do. Just in my opinion, I don't think you can get to that conclusion by only leaning toward fact. I don't think as human beings we are 99.99% factual based. I think it goes a lot of emotion, spirituality, intuition.
But, I agree with
There's so many other things that goes on that, like I said, I appreciate what you're trying to do. I don't know if it would be doable. Like I said, and that goes to what I initially started off what I was saying. There's such a small micro percentage of things that can be acknowledged as complete fact, that if that's the only thing that we're using to come to a conclusion, then it's going to be really hard to do.
I totally recognize that, and I completely agree with you. I think people run 90-ish% off of emotion and maybe 10% off of facts. But and this is not what the book is about. I'm stuck on one section of the book, because when people get really emotional and they're ignoring facts that would be easily provable, right? Something where you can say, like, you know, I'm just trying to think of something that won't start up a huge conversation off track.
You got to give us, I think you got to lead us a little bit more specifically
right now.
You got to lead us more specifically. I think if you leave it up in the open, then we just gonna keep poking holes.
Like,
do you have an example of something that's really specific and say, this is a fact, this is a way that we can use a certain criteria to come to an agreement of thought?
Like, okay, here's kind of an example, but the problem is every time I try these different examples, I find a problem with it where I have this conversation and it doesn't grab their attention. So for me, it works. So things like, if you were on a murder trial, right? If you personally got accused of murder, regardless of what the jury thinks you did or didn't do, like, you may look guilty as hell, right? You want them to look at the DNA. You want them to look at the security camera footage. You want them to look at all these other things. But that's because it's applying to you. What kind of example can I use where it's not personally impacting you, but you would still want to see the evidence used to help out some other person, right? Because it's super easy to think logically when it's your life, your kids, your person on the line. But a lot of these political things, it's some vague thing like, oh, these politicians are eating children and bathing in their blood to stay young. That's an actual.
They are.
Okay, so Nikki, here's my question for you.
I'm going to give you a perfect example. Actually, I was going to answer. I was going to give you a perfect example. So you use the person being on trial for murder, a capital murder charge, period. Most people who invest any emotion of watching a capital murder trial generally want to see DNA evidence. They want solid, actual proof that this person committed a crime. Right. Otherwise, most people will not support the death penalty if you cannot prove it without a shadow of a doubt. So it's still a good example to use, just not them as the person on trial versus a person on capital murder trial, death penalty case.
Okay, so Nikki, I got a question for you. I don't know if I misheard you.
Man.
Did you agree that politicians are eating children? Like, that's a classic QAnon item right now. That the cabal of Democrats
and those are very dismissive things that you're saying, but yes, I do. And you know why? Because there's lots of documentation out there that support this.
Okay, so here's my question. Why are you believing that documentation, like the source? Where are you getting that? Because you chose to believe that Democrats are eating children to stay young.
No, not just Democrats.
Throughout history.
Okay. So
I don't know, Edward. I don't know how your line of questioning is going to get you closer to the answers that you're looking for.
It's not, because it's not the answers he wants to hear.
Well, no,
that's not what I don't even want to go down that road. I'm saying,
I'm not looking for your opinion on it. I'm looking for, how did you decide these facts were believable, and the people who say that that's not true are not believable? Because both sides, if they're presenting evidence to you, let me change.
Because if people say it's not true, people say it's not true, don't do the research. Sorry, Jules, go ahead.
You're asking humans to give robotic responses. You're asking for a purely logical, this is the fact, how I got to the fact.
I'm not looking for that. Hang on, I'm not.
That's what you keep pushing, and all of us are agreeing. If everyone else on this panel is looking and saying, hey, Edward, this is how you're coming across to us, you, sir, are the common denominator. And
I know, and that's why I'm trying to rephrase it so that I can not be getting that response. Because I'm not actually looking for opinion.
You're trying to get everybody in line with your idea.
No. What I'm looking for is, how does she decide? I'm not looking for which one's right or wrong.
She just gave you examples. She just told you that should be enough. We're all looking at the same elephant.
Right.
Just
so
from different sides.
That example. Hang on. Because I think
hold on, Edward, hold on. Denise has her hand up. Go ahead.
Man, that's some bullshit, Smack. Next time I raise my hand, I want the same treatment, motherfucker.
That's right. I know that's right. Did these people to kick you off? No, I'm playing.
I just threw some comedy in.
No,
just
I love
to
my
keep it
sister, and
moving.
I
That's
will
all I'm
say
doing,
she
y'all.
needs
Come
her
on,
hand.
let's go.
I'm gonna ignore Denise.
You spread the love or stop it.
Yeah.
Spread the love or stop it.
Thanks.
So
Don't
one of the
shit all
reasons
over my
I'm in here
points.
is because I know that I'm saying this wrong and I'm not getting across what I want because I don't know how to say it. So let me try it this way. I'm not asking Nikki why she thinks one way or the other, but the source that she chose to believe. How are you deciding that this one is trustworthy and that one's not? I don't care what the topic is. How are you determining this is valid? I'm going to listen to them, and this one's not valid. I don't want to listen to them. So that I can see that logic, and maybe I can find a way to go.
You're good. You're good in the sum of your life experiences.
How many times did you catch that one source that you don't choose to believe anymore in a lie? If mass media is your main source for your belief system, then I have a hard time believing what you believe. If you have not been questioning everything and have not sought out alternative sources to find the truth, I don't believe mass media.
But that's not even it either, because
I've caught mass media in
mass media can. But when mass media tells us things that we want to hear, we don't do a whole bunch of fact checking on it. We be like, oh, see, I told you, that's it.
I question everything, baby. My daddy told me don't ever drink the Kool-Aid, no matter whether it's an individual or an institution serving it to you. Don't ever drink the fucking Kool-Aid. My
Question
daddy told
everything.
me
Well, that's good. I think most people, when you hear something and it already agrees with your previous belief, then you're gonna say, oh yeah, see, I knew it.
Right.
Here's one. Here's an example.
People don't ask questions after if it goes.
Here's an example. When I was younger and I was riding around with my little white homeboys and shit, I would say, "Hey man, you can't do this," and they would do what you're doing, and we're like, "No man, you're crazy. That's not true." I'm like, "No, because of my experience, I know you have no idea this goes on because you haven't had to live that. You've never been concerned with it. It's not your day to day. It's the same thing when I go on platforms and talk about racism with people. I'll tell them really quick. First of all, what we're not going to do here is we can have a conversation, but you're not about to school me on racism because I got one thing that I can use over it all. I have the experience because I'm in the experience. So you're not really in it. You're just a visitor. You're a studier.
So I got a question for you because it sounds like you've had this conversation a lot. When you're talking to those folks, how do you get them to recognize that their experience doesn't? Oh, so you don't even talk.
I don't. All I do is I plant the seed.
That's it.
That's all I can do.
My daddy said, plant the seed.
The seed was planted. When I was the reason I believe in flat earth, the reason for this, because when I was young and we were on a field trip, one of the monks that taught us in the school in the Philippines that we had, he was saying this stuff. Everybody thought he was crazy. I felt it like, wait a minute, that made all the sense in the world. Why do I feel that way? Okay, let me look at it. And over years and time of hearing different things, seeing it, him just saying, just look at it. Hey, oh, they're saying the sun is this far away. Is it? Look at it. Can you even see that far? If you can see that, how come you can't see nothing else? And then when you start looking at it day after day, all these things, you start to realize it's right there. I also feel it. Oh no, but it's 100 times bigger than why ain't it lighting up the whole damn thing? When you look at pictures that NASA shows you of the sun, like all big like this, and the earth is like this, like, come on, fam, all that light bouncing off in all these directions isn't lighting this whole thing up. Or like Homer Simpson said, how come it's not lighting up all of outer space? You know what I'm saying? Like you start to look at things and these things, just 9/11, same thing. I saw these families starting to say, no, it was an inside job. I heard the firemen say there was explosions in that building. They were going off. They were all saying this. Then there was even a slip up where they said they're about to detonate building 7. And it was like, wait a minute. And it fell just the same. So these were all detonated.
Around the corner? Come on now.
That was just the facts of what I'm hearing and looking at, assessing the situation. As a student scientist myself, I'm looking at it. Meaning when I say student scientist, I don't mean I'm going to university. I mean, we're all scientists. We all see shit. It's just up to, do we want to actually see what we're actually seeing? Or do we want to believe something else? Or are we at least pulling in, even though I don't like this, hey man, this looks like what appears to be going on here. That's it, really. You can't. So for you, when you probably heard people saying that stuff like that to you early, and this is something you do got to think about, Edwin. People were probably trying to plant seeds with you early on, but maybe you were so indoctrinated that you were like, no, show me the fact. You wanted the facts so much. Just think about the person that was telling people to sail the world and they didn't have a map. They just knew, well, you go this way and you do. Just imagine like the time period of coming all this way. You can't, it's not a moment or it's not something you're going to say. All you can do is plant the seed.
And I like you have something to say, Jewel. You got your hand up.
Edward, you're thank you. You're doing a fantastic job of asking everybody else about how they came to these conclusions. Have you sat down and thought throughout your lifetime if you ever had a strongly held belief that suddenly you were presented alternative facts to that you changed your mind?
Dozens of times.
So what brought you to that fact? What brought you to that point? I mean,
so that's not my question because
well, she just asked you a question.
That is your question.
Somebody else?
It don't matter. Answer the question, Edward.
That's what you want from somebody else, but you can't give it in return? Come on now.
Okay. Do you want me to waste your time with an obvious answer?
You've been wasting it.
She asked you a question. It's fine to answer.
My point was trying to understand folks who don't think the way that I do.
No, you're not.
You don't understand it like the people you're saying you're trying to get them to understand you. Well, you don't even understand. Maybe you're just a non-understanding person. That could be the fact here.
Okay, let's.
Okay, I'm not offended by that. You guys
it wasn't an offense,
right?
You know, we're
right.
not here to offend anybody. Saying like that's what it's saying. If I couldn't see your picture, you know, that's what I would think.
So the way I choose something is if I'm looking at a source, right? Personally, I'm looking at it for number one, how much expertise are they supposedly having this thing? Like if I'm asking, how do I fix a broken leg? I'm not going to look at a YouTuber who is a yoga instructor. I'm going to look at, are these people medically trained? I'm not automatically going to believe it, but it's one of the factors. Then I'll look at.
It's because you believe Western medicine, though. People believe other things.
Actually. And for the record, I've changed my mind many times. I'm a firm believer in Eastern medicine, but I also believe that there's stuff on both sides that work. I believe in an X-ray machine because scientific method, you can test it, you can prove it, it works again.
It takes your X-ray but gives you cancer.
Western. When I'm looking at a source, I'm looking at the other part is who funds this source? Do they have a reason to believe one thing versus another? Right? If the fund for this medical research was paid for by the tobacco industry, I'm not really going to believe them when they say cigarettes don't cause lung cancer, right? Because they're
the vaccine.
Right.
Right. Let him answer the question.
I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just pointing out the things he was saying earlier. Go ahead. My bad.
Okay. No, you good. Go ahead.
And I'm not saying it's a perfect process by any means, but like there's a string of logic. So you're like, okay, these guys, I believe, based off of who's paying them, that they're going to side with this side because that's who's paying them. So I'm looking for somebody who's relatively neutral. Why they're looking into it doesn't have anything to do with this side or that side, right? How many people have had a chance to try and disprove them, right? So if it's somebody that's brand new science, I'm not trusting anything until there's been an opportunity for somebody to test it. We tried it on this many things. It worked once. Okay, I don't go with that one. Oh, this group tried it 1,000 times and 1,000 times it worked. Okay, that's a little more like believable. What I'm looking for is how other folks who are picking something just because it's not mainstream, are you also taking into, does that other source have these other things in it? Like, do you check?
Can we do some examples? Like,
why do you assume that we're picking something just? Why do you assume that we're picking anything? Hold up, just because it's not mainstream. Well, I listen to mainstream and then I go fact check against it.
You said earlier, if you believe in mainstream, I don't believe you. I was just going off of that. So the thing
if your only basis for everything is what you see on mainstream media and you have not fact checked outside of that, no, I don't believe you. Right. If you find things in mainstream media and then you go find every alternative source you can to fact check it and verify it, then it may be believable. I'm not saying that everything put out in mainstream media is a lie or wrong.
Right.
But I am saying enough of it has been that if you're not fact checking against something other than that 96% of all mainstream media that's owned by the same how many corporate
that should be your main flag right there.
Hello, and that's your foundation. That's your foundation of your information dissemination. Like
so
that makes everything be in question.
Let me ask you, Edward. Let me ask you a question, Edward. What?
I agree with all of you on that.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I want to see if we can get somewhere with this. Give us an example of what you would consider an irrefutable fact. Irrefutable universal fact.
Well, that's why I came on here to ask.
Well, no, okay. Well, you asked. I'm saying you asked, and that kind of that didn't. I don't know if that went the way that maybe it went the way you wanted to go. It don't seem like it. I'm trying to see. I'm trying to get down to the bottom root of.
Pick a topic for an example.
So what I'm asking, let me ask you specifically. Give me something, or can you give me something that we would all, everyone on this panel, would consider an irrefutable universal fact?
Okay. For the record, I came on here to ask someone specifically like Nikki because I considered, the earth is round. I considered that an indisputable one. I wanted to ask somebody like Nikki, what do you consider an indisputable fact that I wouldn't have thought of, right? Because if you don't believe the earth is round, what do you consider an indisputable fact?
Hold on, he didn't answer my question yet. I'm waiting to see if he can give me an answer.
He's not going to.
Do you have an answer to that, or are you just saying that wasn't something that you directly thought of? It's just more you wanted to ask the question versus answer.
I came on here specifically to ask.
So that's a no.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm saying you don't have an answer to what you would consider irrefutable fact.
I've got several.
I'm asking you for one.
Well, something like, like you need air to breathe. I consider the earth being round an indisputable fact.
Well, that's that. Forget about that because we just established that that's not something that we all gonna agree on.
Right.
But let's go here. Let's go here. Do we all agree that you need air in order to breathe? I'm asking everybody here.
At what stage of life? Because while you're neonatal,
right here, right now, us.
No. So for your lungs to function to bring oxygen to your bloodstream, as humans, yes, we need air to breathe.
Okay. Does anybody else? And I mean, I like the way you're thinking, Jules. I see where you're going with that.
No,
does everybody else agree with that?
The rebreather technology that's out there for people to be able to scuba dive and be underwater, what are we classifying as air? I think that one of the issues that you're going to continue coming up against, Edward, is that in order to narrow that down, you've really got to narrow it down. You have got to set extremely specific criteria to your question. Because anything outside of that is going to continue to be where the other points are.
I want y'all to answer my question though, real quick. I want y'all to answer my question. And I get everything. I get the nuances and I get the outliers that you're speaking of, Jules. And I'm glad you using that free thinker brain. I appreciate it. Do we need air to breathe?
Nikki?
I'm trying to get a nod, a yes or no from everybody. Do we need? In order for this exercise, we all universally have to agree on it.
We gotta have something to keep our lungs.
Yes or no? Do you need air?
Okay, here's one. How about this?
We're breathing something. I don't know. We're breathing something.
Do we need the sun to live?
I don't see, and that. See, that's why you don't change my question. I don't know because that's something that I couldn't say yes.
Okay, put it this way: if you took a baby,
we haven't gone without the sun to know if
you
we
could take a baby who knows nothing about air molecules, oxygen, or nothing. Take the baby, throw it in the swimming pool. The baby is gonna hold his breath and start swimming.
Do we all? Let me go here. Everybody, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6 people who are on here, I'm asking you directly, do you believe it's a fact that you need air to breathe?
You got the Edward disease.
I mean,
You're doing the
What's
same
the
thing Edward
disease
just
of not
did.
answering questions? God dang! Is
Something-
that am I
gotta
asking a
happen.
hard
I mean,
question?
something's got to be happening, right?
Do
Something's
you
got to be
need
happening.
air to? Do you personally?
So,
Do I need to go down the line? Q, do you need air? Yes, I believe I need air to breathe. Smack, do you feel that you need air to breathe, sir?
I believe you need air to breathe until it runs out, and then there could be other alternatives that we probably don't know about. I mean, they could snatch molecules out of water, right? Or we can get these oxygen tanks, but too much oxygen from the oxygen, right, is not
good for your brain.
So it's not as good for you as just regular air. If it's air, maybe is it air or is it water?
That's my point.
It's like they're telling us it's air, and so I agree with you on like if we're gonna go for what we've been taught as it being air, yes. Is it air though? I don't know.
Okay, so there's I don't know. Hold on, Edward. Nope. Let me run this down. Nikki, do you need air to breathe?
I'm with Smack, but I will say I know if I hold my breath, bad things happen.
Yeah,
So-
you're either gonna fart or you're gonna something.
But I also know that I believe. I also know that I was taught the same thing we were all taught, and I don't believe that stuff anymore the way I used to.
Edward. Hold on.
Not to say that it's an irrefutable fact. No, I can't say that. I cannot say that. But I know if I stop breathing, I know if I hold my breath, I'm gonna fucking pass out. I know that much. So I don't know. I don't know nothing else but that.
Okay, thank you. I'm not trying to force you to say one thing or
No,
another.
but that's the only way I can. That's the only way I can really give my
I ain't got
answer.
no problem with that. Denise, do you need air to breathe?
What Jules said, what we classify as air, yes. Yeah.
Yes. Jules, do you need air to breathe? And I know you kind of said, I'm just asking you again.
If we're going to take the basic, what we all know air to be, and we're not going to go with any other outside perimeters, absolutely. And since having COVID in 2020 and now having asthma ever since, I promise you, having to use that inhaler and not be able to get a full lung of air, yeah, I definitely believe that there's something that I need to be getting into this body of mine. So I'm going to say that's air.
Okay. Gotcha. Edward, do you need air to breathe?
I said yes earlier. So
okay, so let me hold on. Let me say my final thing, and you can keep going to what you want to do. This right here, in my opinion, proves why your theory won't work. I asked a question. Hold on, let me. You real quick to talk, but you're not listening to what I'm saying. I asked the question if we need air to breathe. And you see the variance of answers that we got. Not saying nobody right or wrong, but when you're talking about trying to find a universal fact and you using that to build a unit, this is an example of why I believe that will not work. If we cannot agree that you need air to breathe, then where do you think you're going to come to any common ground on anything else talking about this is fact? And definitely don't try to go into a political arena. You can forget that. Like that's my thought, and I use this example to say that, but I thank everybody for being honest. Now go ahead. I said what I said. You can feel free to say whatever you want to say now.
The messed up part is I completely agree with you. And for those who weren't here at the very start, I was very specific. I only had one question, and we veered off track all over the place. My one question was
we never veered off track. Stop saying that we keep going off track. No, we not. We following wherever you go.
Let me re-ask the question and see if you agree still.
Please re-ask the question, please. Let's get on something, man.
My original question was to Nikki specifically, because I know she thinks differently than I do. What was something that you consider a fact that you've never doubted? That was my only question.
And the only answer I gave was what?
You didn't give one yet.
Yes, I did.
They all lie.
There you go.
But that's not a provable thing.
Yes, it is. Did Christopher Columbus discover America?
No.
Okay, where
did Christopher Columbus discover America?
No.
Nikki,
Edward, did Christopher Columbus discover America?
He accidentally landed in a place he wasn't planning to go to, and he didn't discover something that people already lived in. You can't discover someone else's
So did he discover America?
Free thinkers don't answer questions. Golly.
No.
Edward, you're proving your own point.
Literally.
Proving your own point.
Literally.
My question was.
I learned a lot today.
And I agree with you. Right. No, he did not discover America.
Okay.
But that's not my
there
question.
we go.
6 minutes later. That's okay.
My question for you, Nikki, was a provable thing.
That was provable.
But but Edward, you can't prove that they don't all lie.
Well, in saying they all lie, you telling me they all lie is an honest thing. I'm asking you, what is something that you could tell to someone else that you could prove right here and right now without anybody being able to question you, right? No one would be able to have an opinion that you're wrong. What is something that you hold is so true?
There is nothing. Just like I said, you can't prove that they don't all lie, Edward. That's what I'm saying. So even her statement, you trying to say, prove that they all lie. And I can say, prove that they don't all lie.
Right. That wasn't my question.
But it doesn't take away from her.
I was looking for, I said it at the time. Hold on. I said it at the time. I'm looking for an example that if you said this thing that you hold as true, no one would argue with you. Something that's so obviously true that you can prove it, no one argues about it. That was the question. Because from my standpoint, a variety of things were, and you don't agree with us. So I'm asking you, what is something that you could say that is so true, you've never had anyone argue with you on it?
I gave you the perfect example, Edward. I just said you need air to breathe, and you saw the different answers we got.
Right.
If we don't get a universal answer on that, then what do you think there is a universal answer to then?
Well, that's why I'm asking Nikki. What did she consider something? Because she was the
Go ahead, ask her. I don't know why you want to do that. Keep going.
You asked her. She answered it.
I answered. You don't like my answer. But I am gonna answer when you asked earlier how you can, and I'm probably getting the words wrong. You basically wanted to bridge a way that you could have a conversation with somebody who was, let's say, extreme on the other end of, let's say, your belief system. You sound like you're trying to find this middle ground, right, to where you all can maybe have a conversation. As a counselor, as a therapist, which you say that you have been for a long time, I'm gonna have to throw a flag on that because your listening skills are terrible. This is not how you have a conversation with somebody that you're trying to counsel or trying to have an understanding with. I too have been in the therapy field for 25 years. I would never talk to somebody who I was trying to have an understanding conversation with in the manner in which you do in almost every conversation that we have. It's dismissive. You don't listen to understand, you listen to respond. And you know this, and you know these are the tenets to therapy and counseling and trying to have conversations with some people. So my response to how do you bridge this, the number one way to gain somebody's trust is to validate them. You validate people. You validate people where they are, who they are, and what information they have. You validate their walk. You validate people. You continue to invalidate people. No one's going to want to hear you. No one's going to want to talk to you, and no one's going to try with you because you constantly invalidate somebody's experience. You will not find a middle ground with that.
And I'm going to piggyback on that real quick. Hold up. I'm going to piggyback on that real quick.
Hold on. I got to throw something in here for the sake of free thinkers itself. Typically, this is just a sidebar. Typically, we definitely have a rule that we attack points, we don't attack people. In this instance, this was a conversation about people's opinions. So if it seemed like we're talking more directly to people versus to points, I allowed that to happen because there's no way we can have the conversation absent of not addressing other people's opinions or facts or whatever like that. So in general, this is not how we operate, but for the sake of this topic, I had to let that part flow. Jules, go ahead, say what you're saying.
What Nikki just stated is the same thing I told you a little while ago. It's the same thing that I've heard from other people here. I don't know. You keep saying you're rephrasing to try and get to the point. But that's what we've been doing, all trying to tell you the same thing. You've got to validate. People feel, if they don't feel heard, if they don't feel seen, if they don't feel like you respect them, if they don't feel like you understand them or are trying to understand them, they're not going to try and reciprocate that and give you that same respect. So when you talk about if somebody's going off the deep end, what's the very first, what do you say? How do you stop them before they walk out the door with the whatever and go do the thing? You've got to connect with them. And telling them you're crazy, it's stupid, and all of those things is never going to do that. You've got to connect with them and validate, hey, man, I get it. Like, I don't understand exactly where you are, but I've been in similar situations. And maybe this is kind of like that. And you empathize and you've got to connect on an emotional level with someone who's in those states. Because all of these things you keep asking about, irrefutable fact, we are not robots. It's irrelevant how many times you try to avoid the emotional factor in this. It's not going to happen.
Okay.
Edward, I'll say this. I think what you're trying to be objective, but you I don't know if you know it or not, you're still sliding certain bias in while you're formulating your thing. Whenever you slide your bias in, then that's where you're gonna get a lot of that pushback from. So even as you continue to do this, you gotta find ways to really purely be objective, because otherwise you're gonna get kickback.
I would like to say that I 100% agree. The problem that I had is I forget that I kind of code switch when I come in here. I'm not in counselor mode, right? I'm in here just asking a specific question, so I wasn't really like.
There's no counselor mode. It's all the time. Communication skills are all the time. It's not when you put your badge on and clock in. I'm this at work every day. At work is me every day.
Let me ask a different question, because Denise has known me the longest. She worked with me for a long time. We've had lots of in-depth conversations and things like that. And I value your opinion. Do you think
me and y'all worked together a long time?
Sure, man.
Don't worry.
That was before you smacked. Don't worry about it. That was before
I'm
you.
just playing.
There's nothing like that.
Before you was not your business.
No, we're just friends. No, I recognize that this conversation went horribly. My question for Denise, because she knows me well, do you think that I'm always like this, or I have the ability to actually just? My real problem is here. I'm super targeted on one thing that I'm trying to get a grip on. So I'm not really thinking outside of that. Because this piece is one tiny piece of what I'm trying to talk about, but it's the piece I'm having the most problems with, which is why I'm so bad at this. I'm having a hard conversation about a topic I can't get my head around, and it's just one piece of a bigger puzzle. I totally recognize you have to have an emotional connection with these people. You have to recognize they've got someone they love. They want to provide a better life for the people they care about. They want to be seen. They want to matter. They want to feel valued, all those sorts of things. I recognize all of that, and I wasn't discussing any of that because that part, in my opinion, is relatively obvious. I was trying to get at the one piece that I totally can't seem to find a way to express properly. So yes, I'm tripping over it all over the place. I'm fucking it all up because I don't know how to get there. And yes, I'm doing it all wrong because it's like trying to ask a question and you don't know how to word it to get an answer that you're going for. And answers that I'm getting, yes, you're answering the question that I asked. I can't seem to get the question that I need to get the information I'm looking for. So yes, I'm fucking this all up.
You're answering your issue, but go ahead.
I don't think you're fucking it up.
No,
I actually don't think you're fucking it up. I think this is exactly what the result is of what we're saying based on how you interpret and feel about the things that you are equally passionate about. I don't know if maybe you can get to that place where you can ask it the way that you get a response that you want, or I don't know if you can. Just like there's a lot of arenas I can't get into because my brain won't allow me to. I just can't. It just won't work for me. So there's a real possibility that you may not get an answer that's going to work. But the way that you're going about asking the questions and receiving the information is definitely not going to bridge somebody's level of trust with trying to have that conversation with you, is all I'm saying.
I'll say something about that in a second, but Denise, go ahead. You can respond, Denise.
So the first thing I want to say is, have you ever seen Inception?
Yeah.
Okay, so y'all remember Leonardo DiCaprio's character was so hell-bent on this idea that he had that he didn't realize that they had did all this because they were trying to save him. This is what I feel like is kind of going on with this conversation with you, Edward. You and hear me out. You are so hell bent on trying to help everyone else that you don't see that you could potentially be on an extreme of an idea too. And I'll say the second part is I think that we're having the conversation from a different place. I think you are having this conversation from the standpoint of a person who's trying to do research because you're writing a book. So you're just like, I need to get these answers, I need to get these facts, I need to get this right. And the rest of us may be having this conversation just as a casual, this is just how I feel conversation, and these are just the facts that I believe conversation. So I think because we're coming from it from different angles, that's why there's like you're meeting us with so much resistance because you're just like, I need to get this because I need to figure this out for the book. And it's just like you may have to take that part off and just have the actual experience, and then you may get more answers. You know what I mean? Because the answers are here, but I think it's just blocked because you think it should be something more or something different. But the answers are here.
So Denise,
go ahead, Edward.
Maybe you understand what I'm shooting, because you're right. I'm absolutely going for a research-based, I'm just looking for like a simple example kind of thing, but it's incredibly complicated to come up with one. Mm-hmm. Do you have a way that you would bring it to this group where, because the idea is assuming we already have the validation, the trust, we're having a conversation with somebody who already knows we care about them, who already knows I have your best interest at heart. And the only reason I'm talking to them is because they do trust that I have their best interest at heart. Trying to calm them down enough to recognize they might want to question the facts that have gotten them this far and just re-look at it. Right or wrong, either way, just look at where are you getting this information? Is it as valid as other information you trust, right? Mm-hmm. How would you go about asking for that? Because I'm obviously doing it wrong. You understand this group better because I'm coming from that research idea that you said. How would you approach it to try and, assuming all that other stuff, get that one piece?
I think it kind of goes back. I don't know if Jules said this or Nikki or Q, but I think the statement was I wouldn't try to convince anybody of anything. I think it's just having the conversation. It's like you can't go into it. I think it may have been Jules. You can't go into a conversation saying I'm going to convince. It's like, I grew up Christian, and I remember I was in the mall once, and I was talking to a guy who was Muslim, and I was like, okay, so this is my chance. I'm going to minister to him, and he was having the same conversation with me, and in that moment, I realized neither one of us are wrong. Like, we just feel how we feel. And the intent is for us to live our life a certain way, walk with love, treat people a certain, we both have the same idea. So why am I so busy telling him that he needs to say in Jesus' name? He doesn't. And I need to say out loud.
For that example, Denise, so say the person you were talking to was getting ready to go on some religious hate crime, not to change their mind, but how would you get them to pause to think about it longer so maybe they won't be so like, because a lot of people, they do.
So, Edward, let me answer your question, Edward. When you talk about that, it's not telling someone what they should or shouldn't do or trying to lead them to a place of thought. What you want them to do is just have clear thought.
Right.
You want them so even with that, so like I asked, do you need air to breathe? I'm not trying to correct Nikki or Smack when they say, well, it kind of depends. That's their answer. So when you ask a question, you should not ask a question with a concerted effort for that answer to be answered in the way that you want it to be. That's the part that you cannot control. And these are things that I learned as a moderator a long time ago. When I used to we do certain topics, I'm still a stickler for staying on topic, but I'm no longer a stickler for the conversation going the way I want it to go and everybody harmoniously coming to the same conclusion at the end of the no. Number one, it don't happen. Number two, it's not my job for that to happen. So one of the things that I heard you said, you talked about well, you probably didn't say that. This is what I heard though. When you talked about you doing this as, you know, you're doing research, and it seems like through your line of questioning, you already have an end result of a thought process that you're trying to get to. And this is your kind of study test to prove your research right. And I think that approach is the wrong approach, because that's something you cannot control that. So even there's certain things that, you know, 1 + 2 + 3 = 6. And then I'm like, hold on. That wasn't a 2 though. That's not a 2 right there. So now I'm stopping you in the middle of what you're saying, because you're 1 + 2 + 3 = 6. And I'm like, no, but that's not a 2. So the ultimate conclusion that you're trying to get to is not going to come to that, because that's not what we don't see that 2 as the same thing as what you see it. So what I'm saying is you just have to be careful about ask the questions, but don't have an expectation of the answer or the result that comes from it. Okay, and so then you take that as research and be like, oh wow, I didn't that wasn't what I was expecting. Let me go back to the drawing board. Let me reevaluate some of the things that people are saying when it comes to this, because I only saw it this way. Now let me look at it from this angle and this angle. And that's how you fully examine research. Go ahead.
Going off of that, yeah, because the theory wasn't to give them this example to know where they're going to answer. The idea is something that they trust so much that it gets them to pause and calm down, like before they go off and move further. Right. Yeah, because I'm not.
But I'm saying even in your approach, you had the thing. It seemed like you were trying to get to a certain destination with it. So even when you said, give an example of this, and I gave an example, and you're like, well, what's another example? I'm like, well, that was a good example. But it wasn't what you were looking for, because you're looking for something that's going to drive you to an ultimate destination. And when you do that, then it takes away your list. It takes away some of your listening, because you're zoned in trying to get to a specific place. And I know I definitely do that sometimes. And that's why I try to back up, because the more I get zoned in trying to go somewhere, I lose certain things that's said. And then I go back and listen later, like, dang, I ain't even hear that. And go ahead.
Yeah, that's definitely not where I'm trying to go with that. The idea is something that, because I'm just looking for.
I don't think you're trying to, but I wanted to point that out, that may be what you're doing, even though you're not trying to do it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to do that.
You're asking for a fact that's going to change an emotion.
No,
it's not going to happen. And you're saying, you keep coming back to the same thing, that a person is in a heightened emotional state, and until you can calm the emotional side, facts are irrelevant, because emotions just are. Feelings just are. No matter how society tries to negate what you're feeling and tell you, oh, you're a man, you shouldn't feel this or that. We are human. We are allowed to have the full spectrum of human emotion. And anything that you do when someone is in a heightened state of emotion, no matter whether that is positive or negative, their emotions are going to sway how they interact with you. And so if you are talking about someone who is in a negative, heightened emotion and trying to come up with anything factoid that you can do, you can't. You must.
It's a small percentage of people who respond to fact. I say that.
Okay, hang on.
You must connect with that human on a human emotional level and be the water that they can seek balance with. And if you are not capable of listening and getting that emotional connection, you're not going to say any fact that's going to change their mind or make them pause or make them stop. It's not going to happen. You're asking about a fact, and you need to be asking about an emotional connection. That's how you make people change their emotions.
I know. The question, they've done a ton of research on it. If somebody's in a particular mode, and you know how you just ask them something weird, and it throws them off track because it's not related to what they were talking about, and they just pause and they're like, wait.
Well, ask them what their favorite ice cream is then.
That's some people though.
Right, some people, but the idea wasn't to change their mind on it. It was more just to, like, it stops the emotion because it's just a fact. It's not a fact trying to change their mind. It's just a fact they believe in that has nothing to do with anything else. It's just something you all hold as true.
That's dismissive. That's not validation. That's dismissive.
The validation comes afterwards.
No, you don't validate afterwards. If you want me to hear you, you better validate me first, baby. That's not how that. You did counseling 101.
Like I said,
Come on now.
We already have that validation. The conversation was assuming we already have that validation because I'm only having the conversation with someone who knows I care about them and knows that I have their best interest in mind. I was looking for just some sort of thing that anybody.
You make a lot of assumptions on your part, though. That's the problem.
Hold on.
You
hold on. Okay,
let
me hold on. Let me back up.
Can we get to a subject or use something as an example?
No, we 145. Now let me. I'm going to give another observation.
Break out your hula hoops.
I think some of us have got initially triggered, and now I think we have strong reactions to everything that he's saying. So I mean, let's all try to speak with an objective mindset.
We're not going to have a conclusion that is going to be agreeable for everyone. We're not. I mean,
yeah, I don't. That's what I said.
Yeah, we're not going to have an agreeable conclusion. But I absolutely reiterate what I say. Validation is important, and you know the pathology of people, the psychology of people, especially somebody who's in that heightened of a state of mind. There's nothing you can say. Nothing you can say is going to make them pause, as you say, and step away from the bullshit cliff. It's not going to happen. So sometimes we have to watch them crash and burn. We know this. Yeah. Some people have to touch fire enough times before they say, you know what, I'm done touching this fire. We watch people destroy themselves every day. There's nothing we can do.
If it's somebody you have their ear and you talk about something's important, urgent, if there's something you can, if you have their ear, there's certain things that you can do to talk people.
You have to get their ear first, and you're not going to get their ear by being dismissive and already feeling like they're being judged and labeled as crazy or ridiculous, Nikki, or one YouTuber's under their belt, and all of a sudden now Nikki, they just believe these certain things.
Did you hear what Edward said though? Edward was talking about he was moving forward under the assumption that you already have this connection with this person that you're speaking to.
Yeah, this is a conversation.
So this ain't about him or how he addressed you or me.
Your connection
as the person as the person that you're probably trying to get to pause, I'm that person. I frequently have these conversations with people who I do care a little bit about, to where I'll even exercise this energy to go there with people and get into that ring.
They don't listen to nothing that you say?
I'm that family member. I'm the family member that comes to the table and they start talking about things that people don't want to talk about. I am that family member. So
no, Nikki, I'm saying you have people that are close to you and they own the edge of the ledge. And when it's time for you to talk them down or bring them down, they don't listen to you. They don't respond to anything.
No, I'm the person he's trying to talk off the ledge. I'm the person he's trying to understand. He's trying to get an understanding of where they're coming from so he can try to find that middle ground.
I just asked you a question.
But what I'm saying is, if there isn't a basis of respect or validity, nothing you say is going to make me want to hear you past that point.
I just addressed that, Nikki. I just addressed that. Now I'm asking you a question about what he said versus who he's saying it to.
Say it again.
So forget about what he said to you. I'm asked the statement that he was making was talking about getting people off of that ledge when they're in a heightened emotional state, steps and procedures that you can make to bring a person back to that. And you was like, and so then you had the response, there's nothing that you could do in a situation like that. I'm like, really? You've never had a situation where somebody was on the edge of the ledge and you were not able to talk them down?
Do you know why I'm able to talk them down?
So you are. So all I'm saying
only
is
in some situations.
Okay.
Because why? Because there's an element of trust. There's an element of loyalty. There's an element of respect. Nikki, there's an element of love. There's an element of reciprocity.
Right. What I'm saying is there is a level of validity to what he just said. You dismiss what he just said because it was him saying it to you.
No,
I'm saying the statement itself has validity.
No, I'm saying if you come off with the
I
energy
know better
that you
than
are
do
being
that.
dismissive to somebody, they're not going to hear you.
Let's ask a different question. So, Nikki, you say you're the one who comes into the family dinner and everybody's trying to talk you out of something. Those are people you love and you trust. Has any one of them said something to you that got you to pause and reconsider where they were coming from? And what did they say to do it? Because we're assuming you care about that person. I'm just saying, what did they say to get you to go,
Edward?
maybe.
Edward, now you
Edward,
asked,
hold on.
you asked the
She's
question.
not listening to you. That's what I'm
Yes,
trying to
I
tell you.
am.
No. The way that you're responding to him is not the way that you respond to everybody else, because
I'm going to answer his question.
I don't want to
with
use
a
the
question.
T word, but I see the T word come in, and I'm like this, and that's why I'm questioning your responses, because I don't even
responded yet.
No, I'm saying your response that you just gave to where there's nothing that anybody can do, and that was my response to your answer.
So to answer your question, Edward, I wanted to literally ask you the same question, right? So your question to me was, is there anything that anybody's ever said or done that's made me stop and pause? Edward, it's me. No. Okay.
Well, that's a legitimate answer. So
there's never been a situation where somebody's had to hit the pause button on Nikki Davy. Just walk away from me. Leave me alone.
She did. She did when we was at Black Tea Talk. I stopped her because when that dude was in the crowd talking crazy, I was like, I said, don't even say nothing. Don't.
Well, shit, I didn't even say nothing.
Now I turned around and flipped out a little bit, but I got her not to flip out, and she listened to my words.
What
I was like, no, that ain't even for you to respond.
Shit, I didn't say nothing.
And then on top of that, after I flipped out, Stacey Shay talked to my ear and got me to calm down. I'm like, because I'm coming off the stage. Stacey was like, "Q, listen to me. Listen." I was like, okay. She brought me off the lid because I was coming off the stage. Anyway, my whole point is, there's things, if you trust a person, there's things that people can do and say in a way that they go about doing it that can take you off of the ledge. I was literally jumping off the ledge, which was the stage at that time. But Stacey Shay brought me down.
Okay. Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you, Stacey.
Okay. As a professional technical writer, one of the things that I do is standard operating procedures. And in that, it's writing the procedures for in the event of a threat against the facility or an individual. It is an abusive caller. Everything, all of the research, all of the psychology says you connect with them emotionally. I'm sorry that you feel that way. Can you tell me what's got you feeling that way? There's nothing other than an emotional connection that all of the research that I've done shows is going to stop that person in their tracks and open the door to have a further conversation about it. If you cannot connect with them on some emotional level. Now, again, in the world of all things possible, people who are autistic or on a spectrum and don't have connection with their emotions, that is not going to be as applicable. They're going to be more logical, and saying, what's your favorite ice cream might be the thing that brings them back to a different space.
I understand that. The conversation
talking about people who have a basic normal emotional response to things and are in that state, even technical writing.
You're talking about the norm. Just because it's never been done a different way doesn't mean that it can't be.
And that's also a stranger talking to a stranger. I'm talking about you already know this person. They already know you love them.
Okay, if you speak to the people who supposedly know you the way that you have spoken to us on this panel and in previous conversations, then I don't trust you. I wouldn't trust you. I would not trust you. You would not have an emotional. I wouldn't find you to be an emotional safe space if you treat other people the way that you've spoken to and treated us on this panel here.
Damn.
Do you agree with her, Denise? As far as, and I'll take your answer. Absolutely. You know, you're the only one who actually knows me here. Do you agree with that?
What part? Because I think I don't have the ability to emotionally respect people. I think what you're asking me right now is to agree with how she would feel, and I can't agree with how she would feel or disagree with how she would feel. I can only tell you how I would feel based on my experience with you. And I've had a different experience. So it kind of goes back to the whole concept of validating. So because I've had a different experience with you, because we've had different conversations, because I know you have my best interest based on certain conversations that we've had, I can receive information from you differently than versus some of the interactions that you've had with other people. So it just goes back to just what I would consider validation, what someone else considers validation is two different things. And so there's no hard answer. And I think you're looking for a hard, logical answer. And I think the whole thing that everyone is saying is that there is no hard answer, and that the answer, if there is any, is really heavily based in emotion. And I think I think some also like how some certain questions were phrased, where like, for example, we know like flat earth, round earth thing is like a really big, heavy topic, right? So let's say I don't believe in flat earth, right? And I'm talking to Nikki, I'm gonna say, Nikki, I can understand maybe based on this, that, or that, why you may think this way. What are some reasons why you feel that way? Versus me approaching Nikki as if what I believe is the fact. You know what I'm saying?
That's why I said coming in with bias. Yeah, I said speaking with bias and not knowing it.
Right. Yeah. So
and then even like with me, I say this, Edward, like I'm actually trying to advocate for the conversation that you was having. There's certain things that I was saying is like, well, we getting off subject. I don't really think and I'm like, no, I'm really trying to stay. Did he hear what I actually just said? That was me actually stay. So then it made me feel, and for me, it's not like you're validating my emotions or my feelings, but in free thinkers, I do want my thoughts validated. I want my thoughts to be heard. I want my, the things that I say. So then it's like, were you even listening to me, or you just got your own place that you're trying to get to? So from that aspect, to answer, I think what Nikki or Jules was saying, I wouldn't listen to you from that aspect, because I don't think you really listen to me. You got somewhere that you trying to get to.
And I would make a recommendation, because this is recorded and it's going to be out there on YouTube. Go back and watch it. Go back and listen to it without bias. Go back and listen to all of the feedback that you got for all of these questions that you've asked, and all of the different ways that you asked it, and all the ways that the same responses were given back. And it was in circles. You were
all
saying
the damn
one thing
ways.
repeatedly.
Yeah.
Everybody else was saying the same thing back in a million different ways. But go back and listen to it. And this, you wanted the research, go back and listen to the conversation, research with the conversation.
Yeah, I think the intent is good. I think it's
Sure.
just the
I agree.
You definitely answered the question.
Absolutely.
Just nobody can tell her anything. And yeah, that's the answer. It wasn't, wasn't a great answer as far as like, oh, it's not very helpful for me. But yeah, if no one in her family has ever been able to say something to get her to pause, coming from her own family, people she loves, well, maybe that just is the answer, that if you're that far over, it doesn't matter who's talking to you, nobody can tell you anything to get you to pause.
Why does somebody have to be far over? Like, you don't hear the words you're saying, bro. Like, so why would I ever have you come to me and try to reason with me in a space when you already have in your mind that I'm probably full of shit?
Well, no, the whole point was.
And let me back up. My family doesn't come to me and try to change me, because they know that I am who I am. And I don't speak with most of my family for specific reasons. I stand on what I stand on. It's not because they don't agree with my feelings. It's because I don't associate with bigots. I don't associate with people who are hypocrites and foundationally fucked up. I prefer to protect my peace and my space, and I'm very, very diligent about doing so. So I don't need a big ass family Thanksgiving. I will have Friendsgiving, and we will eat delicious foods, and we will share love, but we're not going to talk politics. We can do that on here or somewhere else.
Mac and cheese.
It's not, I also feel like now you're painting this image of, all these people that just love you and they're trying to save you and they can't because you're you. And it's not that.
No, I was talking about a specific situation where, because I don't believe you've ever been in that situation where you were going to go do something that would harm yourself.
No,
I'm talking about a conversation.
How would you know, Edward? You don't know anything about her. How would you know what she would or wouldn't do?
When Nikki and I met, she didn't believe that the Earth was flat, my dear. This is something that she has studied. Hold up. This is something that Nikki has researched and studied over the years that she and I have known each other, wherein she changed her mind about things. So
and I have no problem with that.
The angle that it sounds to us like you're coming at this from is that there's such a deep ingrained extreme thought process that Nikki specifically, or people who you feel are against the mainstream.
His words were conspiracy theorists.
They have a thought process that's so deeply ingrained that they refuse to believe. And no, Nikki has changed her mind about that major thing we keep talking about just in the years that she and I have known each other, because she did the research and she saw alternatives to the facts that she had been presented her entire life. So when you come with an assumption about anyone's strongly held belief, unless this is someone who you've spent 24/7 with their entire life from their birth to the moment that you're making that assumption, you don't have any fucking clue, man. You don't know their experiences. You don't have that background.
My only assumption on this was that Nikki, out of all the people I personally know, would probably have had more people think that she's a conspiracy nut and have these kinds of conversations with her. I'm not saying she is.
Why do I have to be a conspiracy nut, though?
No, I'm not
the
saying
word.
You realize that's propaganda in and of itself.
They're trying to tell you, you got to change. You got to change.
Intentional. You say words that are inflammatory. You have inflammatory language.
Man, you're great.
I'm not saying you are. I'm only saying
you did.
No, the fact that the words came out your
Edward. It's your speech. That's like saying, I'm not a racist. It's the same shit. Don't say the shit that is offensive to people because it's not your idea or it's not the way that you feel about stuff. It's like a white person saying to me, I don't have anything wrong. I don't have anything against black people. I work with two of them. It's that type of speech. It's the speech. It's the words. It's how you are relaying it. I was listening to you, but I'm kind of like, damn, this motherfucker ain't just gonna get it. I'm trying to say this as curtly as I possibly can, and it's the words. It's the words. Conspiracy nut, because she doesn't believe.
A conspiracy theory is only a theory until it's proven, and then it was in fact a conspiracy. And there have been way too many conspiracies that have in fact been proven. For you to believe the propaganda that was put out during the Nixon era that anyone believes in a conspiracy is possible is a nut job. That was propaganda. That was mainstream. It is documented. There are audio recordings of Nixon speaking about these things.
I don't think that at all.
So again, but Edward, this is what hold on. This is what I'm saying, Edward. And I tried to tell you this earlier. I was just like, all right, well, I guess you whatever. More specifically, I mean, Smack's still jokingly about it, but Nikki and Jules kind of specifically addressed your language and some of the verbiage that you use toward them. And they expressed to you then that they wouldn't hear something from somebody coming from. So I'm trying to tell you, like, at this point, you probably don't need to ask her no more. Anything that you ask her is not going to be received well based upon the experience that they just received from you.
Because you done fucked up the emotional connection.
And you kept asking them the same. I'm like, why are you still asking them questions right now? They literally told you, I'm not hearing you because of the way that you approach this. Then you went on, well, I just got another question for you. I'm like, why would you have another question for her right now? That's not a good idea.
You're right.
Or
that's
or why would you have a question without first the validation piece? This is like a perfect, like we're doing a really good case study right now.
Shit is comedy, man.
The theory. You could test the theories out right now. Like this was like a live theory test.
I wouldn't even. I come back next week and start over again. Sometimes you got, because not only that, because sometimes even if you heighten certain emotions, then sometimes you don't have the control of when those emotions are going to settle back down.
Bro, if we're doing this merry-go-round again next week, I won't be back.
Fam,
I'm gonna be back all the time.
This
so,
was the remix on top of remix question. It just went in a circle for 2 hours, fam.
Jewel, I'm with you on that one.
No, it went in a circle for 2 hours, fam.
I mean,
I think it was good.
out of sorts tonight.
I do too, Denise. I agree. I agree.
2 hours.
I agree with you, Denise. It was good. You may not have gotten what you thought that you wanted out of this conversation, but it was absolutely valid. It was a great conversation.
It's very educational too. All you got to
It
do is
is.
go back and look at it.
No, I actually enjoyed this conversation. Now, I mean, hope everybody else no hard feelings to anybody else, but I mean,
it was all right.
This was. Let me tell you. Let me say it like this, then. For someone who does this show every single week and have exhausted every type of topic and conversation that you could, this is good for me. So if you periodically coming in and out, then it ain't your cup of tea. I get it. For me, I absolutely enjoyed it.
I just would have liked to seen it gone somewhere.
I need
with like
different
a
flavor
particular topic,
like
and use it as an example and talk about it so we could go deep. But
and you know what? If y'all got some topics, then y'all come up with some more.
Hello, every week we say this. Where you at? Come on with it.
And if you wasn't feeling this, give us your week. I dare someone to tell me a time where they had a topic and I didn't discuss it.
And I want to say too,
y'all getting off topic now.
Look, I want to say, I think what you're trying to do, Edward, is admirable. I think that what you're trying to do in finding a middle ground with two very dramatic sides of a coin. I think it's important to find a neutral space. I like to believe I live in a non-prejudice neutral space. I think it's important to find neutral space amongst people, wanting to be able to converse with people, wanting to be able to have engaging conversations with people that you care about, wanting to get on people's level. But it's literally just that. You have to get on somebody's level. That's it. And from there, it's amazing the fucking doors that open when somebody feels like they're heard and you're here with me. We can talk. I think it's super fucking important. I think that more people need to have conversations like this that we're all having tonight to be able to understand how people feel and think and engage, where our shortcomings are, where our strengths are, where our weaknesses are, what we need to grow upon, what we need to foster, the seeds we need to plant. Conversations like these are important because this is why people stop talking to each other. True. This is why people just write people off. And sometimes some people deserve to be written off. I'm the first person to tell you that. But I fuck with what your purpose is. I understand what you're trying to do. And I never mean to be mean. I never mean to be insulting. I never have a malicious heart ever. I really and truly don't. If I have one, you're gonna know it's intentional. I want people to understand conversation better. And so my saying the things that I said to you tonight were not at all to pick at you or to bring you down or to try to, isolate you, to somehow make me look better or feel better or my stance be more important. It's not. I'm just not gonna not speak the truth. And being that we have similar backgrounds, I know that we understand the same language. And this is important, Edward. This is really important. And I do hope that you and because I always watch the video again, I hope I learned something out of this that I didn't catch during the show, but I really hope that for the sake of the power that you do hold, you get something out of this that maybe you might not be hearing for the last 2 hours. Because I think that you have a lot of good work in your heart and you do have good intention. I just think that maybe your difficulty is when it comes to people who just don't necessarily believe the same stuff that you believe, maybe on some extreme shit. Maybe that's the part that you got to explore a little bit. But I don't at all want there to be a bad energy between you and I, because I'm not trying to be mean at all.
No, and I don't take it personal at all. And as a matter of fact, the reason I came in to ask with you specifically, I respect the way you think. You think differently than me, but I respect the way that you do it. So I recognize that I don't get that. And that is something that I've been trying to work on, is getting a better understanding of different thought patterns. And you're my favorite person to talk to about that, because you are blunt about it. And you say it in ways, I'll have to rehear it. I always rewatch these videos myself.
Right.
Because when you're in it, like you're trying to like get at something and you're too busy thinking to really hear it, re-listening to it is always a good idea. The way you think differently than I do is something that I respect enough that that's why I talk to you about this stuff, so that I can re-listen to it later and try and figure out a little better about where I'm not on the same page with others.
So just an observation. Do you
hold
realize
on just a second, Jules? Jules, hold on.
Do you
a second.
realize that you just said that you listen to respond and not to hear?
Jules, hold on a second. Hold on. We trying to tie all this together in a nice, pretty bow. Okay. Or at least I'm trying to do that. That's what I say. But I'm gonna give not everybody, but the people who didn't get to speak as much, I'm gonna give y'all final words. Smack, what's give us a minute or two. What's your final thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. This was a good merry-go-round conversation. I still think it was great. I agree with Nikki. I don't think there's any malice on his end. I think there's something there, but I just think when I look at this 2 hours and 9 minutes, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, man, if this was a child that you had to tell, hey, it's hot, just imagine 2 hours, man. At a certain point, it's like, but you just said it just now. You're listening to respond and not to. So it boggles me. Like the things you'll say is like, then you're not really listening, and that's why this went on for so long on this remix of remixes. Like still trying to get someone to kind of agree with your point or give you this thing. And like, there's been great points made. Get on their level. Have a connection. There's got to be some, you might learn something. It's like talking to a homeless person or, like we gave these examples and like, but maybe they know what they're talking about and maybe you don't. And maybe this is the time for you to learn something and listen and not be so like, no, how do you talk them off? Like she said, sometimes you can't do it with everybody. Sometimes people got their mind made up. So if they got their mind made up, that ain't going to happen, but I think, just got to get better at just master the art of listening. Regardless if it agrees with your belief system or not. Like me and Q have different belief systems. I don't write him off though. He's still a great guy. You know what I mean? Okay, you believe this. I don't believe that. Like case in point, if me and Q had to get over to this cliff and Q was just being lazy, but it was me, he's on my back and I'm doing on the rope trying to get to the other side, and then we get to the other side, and he says, see, man, the power of God. I'm like, man, what you talking about? I'm the one that did all the damn work. See?
We made it to the other side.
And then Q's going to say, but it was through the power of God you had the strength to do it.
I was praying for your arms to get off that rope, man. Had I not prayed for you, you wouldn't fall,
but nigga, I was about to fall, but I'm trying not to die. That's what kept us here, not something mysterious going on. Like what? But I'm just saying, like that might be a weird example, but I'm just saying, like that's what I think. I agree. I think you should probably go back, listen to this, and that's one of the things I was always taught early on was master the art of listening. Just that, because people just want to be heard. If someone's about to go off a cliff, they don't need you to tell them what it is. They've already had the experience of what brought them to the edge already. They're ready to go because their experience already brought them there. Now you're finna tell them, no, man, you're just crazy. No, they just want out.
Sure.
But if you start treating them or talking to them like they don't know that, it's like they have that experience. You don't. You're the counselor, but you haven't been to the edge. So you don't know what space they're really in. You're probably wondering, man, what got you to be right there? I don't even think people are crazy that commit suicide. I just think they want out. And whatever experience they have has brought them to where I actually respect it because I'm like, wow, you're choosing to exit the game.
Okay, that's what's up. Thank you for that. Stokely, give us 2 minutes. You got any last thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I'm going to go back and watch this one again, too, because it was, just kind of had me on some other shit tonight. But, yeah, the key that I can take away from this, or the advice that I can give Edward with this, is just listen more, talk less. Listening is key in life, period. To gain someone's trust, I think Nikki, everybody said it. Gaining someone's trust to have that conversation, to allow you to be in that space with them to have the conversation, is critical. And growing up with a counselor father, I mean, I can tell you times where I was more pissed off, and I had no reason to be pissed off. And he comes in there and talks to me as a young man, and again, gaining his trust for me to listen to him, and made a point. So do a little bit more of that. I appreciate the conversation tonight. It was more about me listening because I couldn't form the words until the end. I just didn't have it in my vocabulary. I'm one of these fiery type motherfuckers. When I go in, and so it wasn't that I wanted to. It was simply like, wow, he is not listening. He's not hearing what is being said by all these people. And that was the part that was disheartening to me, because I know you have a point, or you had a point that you were trying to make. You couldn't get to it, and then you were dismissing people, and your speech was wrong. So go back and listen to it. We still love you. We're gonna pray for you. Get another tattoo next week.
He don't do the prayer stuff. He don't do the prayer stuff.
That's a trigger right there.
I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. So yeah, man, just go back and listen to it. You can learn a lot. We all learned a lot tonight. That's why I sat back and just kind of drank my tea and listened. Sipped my tea and listened. So you guys, that was a good one.
Appreciate it, sir. Jules, you got 2 minutes. What's your last thoughts?
I have been a participant in this group and the iteration prior for over a decade at this point. And a part of the reason why I've been a participant in this particular group is Q and the way he moderates, and the fact that the one overarching thing that I know when Q is in the conversation, we can all disagree, but we will all have the opportunity to be heard, and we will do it respectfully. There have been times when Q was not in attendance at the prior iteration of this thing that we do now, and it got downright disrespectful. There were times where the inside the coffee shop and the parking lot got downright disrespectful because there was not a calm, cool, level head to stop it from happening, to say, whoa, hold up, wait, whoa. We can agree to disagree respectfully. You don't have to believe the same things that I do. You don't have to understand the same things that I understand to be fact. You don't have to agree with the way that I feel, but you do have to understand that feelings just are. Opinions can be changed and feelings will change in a second. The factor of respect, that open communication with respect, with the ability to pause. With the Q is fantastic at making sure he puts a pin in that conversation, and he lets us run a little ways down the trail. But then before he moves to the next person, he brings it back to where the split in the road happened and gets us back on topic. Okay, so respect, appreciating the fact that everybody don't think the way. And honestly, my biggest thing with it is I learned so much from all these people who don't think like I think.
Right.
I want to hear I want to hear all those other thoughts. That's the whole reason for.
That's who you learn the most from.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you take marketing, they'll tell you that the most valuable customer that you have is your dissatisfied customer who's willing to speak to you. That's your most valuable customer,
right?
Because they're the one that's going to go run off and tell 10 or 100 people how horrible your service was. The people who are satisfied and all think the way that you think and think that everything is hunky-dory and it's great, they tell a person or two. Likewise, with all of these thoughts that we share here in this platform, with all of these thoughts that we share in this group, in these rooms, it is the diversity that I love, appreciate, and respect and learn from every time.
Good stuff. Thank you for that, Jules. Denise, we'll let you get a benediction. What you got?
This was definitely church, and I'm glad it came for this conversation. So I literally had an incident this week. So to be amongst people,
the roommates
disagree, but also like passionately disagree and also respectfully disagree, and have such difference in opinions, and be able to pivot and be able to make adjustments. Just seeing like the tension between Nikki and Edward, and then how they both validated each other. When y'all go back and watch it, you'll see how that changed and how that shifted. You know what I mean? And seeing that was beautiful. I like seeing that. I have one idea that I think could be cool as a part 2, then a part 3. I was thinking that the part 2 could be that we bring these ideas that we know people think are extreme ideas, and we talk about them to each other. And then the part 3 could be the idea that you completely disagree with. You have to go research the other side and then come back and talk about it. That would be cool. But that's just my idea.
I feel like that's a great idea, but I feel like that was the whole birth and life of Black Tea Talk. But you're right. I like the idea of researching somebody else's opinion, researching somebody's thought that you don't agree with. I mean, and honestly, that's why people like me, conspiracy nuts and shit, that's why we are the way we are, because most people won't delve into what we believe in or why we believe the things that we believe. They just write us off. They just say, no, y'all are crazy. So I like that on that part 3. I definitely like that part 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Denise?
No, I just missed y'all.
Oh,
I'm so glad everybody's together. This was a great panel tonight, man.
All right. Well, thank everyone for participating. Thank everyone for their thoughts and just for being open and free and speaking freely. Makes for a great conversation. If we all agreed, it would be extremely boring conversation. So with that being said, if you have thoughts, ideas, just like even Denise, I think hopefully we can kind of expound and manifest that one a little bit more. But if you have any ideas about things that you want to talk about, discuss, let us know. We are always open to it. Nikki, what else you got?
I just wanted to say if we want to give a few seconds or just a quick second for people to drop how to be followed, or if people are interested in following Edward to understand the book, or Denise's page, if anybody wants to follow each other, or or just if y'all want to put how people can follow you, go ahead. Smack, you're muted.
All right. Well, then put it.
Yeah, just follow. Yeah, just find me.
Yeah. Put it in the thread. I think everybody probably talked out. But yeah, check us out. Put your stuff in the comment thread. Denise got some. She spit that hot fire, man. Smack got some nice stuff going on as always, and Edward doing what he do. I wish Edward would bring his podcast back.
Nikki's making mac and cheese for Thanksgiving for purchase. Cookies, vegan
mac and cheese,
collard greens, cornbread.
I might get some of that. Make my time easy. I'm gonna outsource my meals. I might do that.
I see some of your stuff on it, Nikki. I'm like, damn.
You gotta get her meals, man. I'm telling you.
Is it good though?
The white girl got it, man. I'm
really?
Put her foot all the way in it.
The white girl got it, man.
They all have my food. They all.
Hey, it reminded me
really?
of like.
Well, next time we come to Austin, I'm gonna have to get some.
Yeah, I need to. Is your menu on your page or what you making?
I mean, my menu's on the Dessert House page, but I'm a. Are you making anything, or can you make me a? So you just let me know what you want made, and I got you.
I know. I think I want some mac and cheese. I'm just
got you,
man. All that you did the other time. Do all
just
of
give
that.
me text me. Because I'm gonna get something from you.
Thanksgiving spread. I do it all. I do it vegan. I do it regular. You just got to let me know what you want.
Give me the regular.
I prices on them.
I want all the regular. You don't want no vegan shit.
Let's go. It reminded me of like my aunts or something, man. Like, man,
yep.
The white girl got it. Stuff with the white girl got it, man.
Oh yeah.
Got it.
She cook as good as me find it. Ain't no question.
What?
Let me find out. I believe it.
Hey, I'm trying to tell you.
Better ask somebody.
All right, y'all have a good night.
Good night,
Appreciate
everybody.
y'all.
Y'all take care.
Thank y'all.
I miss y'all. Love y'all.
Miss you too.